Okay. Good evening to our non-existent YouTube audience. We'll give them a couple of minutes to assemble. It's 8 o'clock in the East. Do you know where your children are? Tonight we're going to talk about the Fool, which is the zero card in the Tarot. And we're going to start with well, what we should say first is that the major arcana, at least, and we have to have a discussion about the minor arcana, but the major arcana, at least, are archetypal events that happen in every person's life. And if you're aware that they happen in every person's life and when they happen, then it's going to make you better able to understand what's going on in your life. And so that's why we call this a roadmap for life. And so this evening, we're going to be talking about the zero card, which is the 22nd major arcana that we've discussed. It actually normally comes at the beginning of the deck. And so we're going to have a lightning round here where I'm going to ask my colleagues, first of all, who is the Fool? So Nick, tell us about who the Fool is.
Let's see, who is the Fool? Let me pass the ball to somebody else. I need a minute to think about this.
Okay, Jordan.
The Fool is every card, individuates to become every card, and lives in the psychic synapse of the space between every card. I don't find it to be the zero card, but the unsquared circle of self card.
Okay, Jordy, do you want to take a crack at who the Fool is? Lightning round. Guess not. We seem to have him frozen. Okay, Samantha, who is the Fool?
Okay, no one's ever asked me this before. So the Fool is the inner child and the process of tarot ascending through the major arcana, as well as traveling through each suit. Those are all paths that we travel away from our readings in order to come back to the Fool again. So the Fool is both who we are now and who we aspire to be and aspire to maintain being, which is our truest self.
Okay. Denise, do you want to respond to the lightning round? Who is the Fool?
I don't think I could say it better than Samantha did.
Okay.
I think of the Fool as embodying innocence, and then at the end of life, embodying wisdom.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I can offer my answer now.
All right, go ahead, Nick.
I would say that the Fool is an innocent child, completely naive, and also the wisest person in the room.
Okay, Jordy, do you have a comment on who the Fool is?
Do you read me?
Yes.
Because I have to restart the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Never mind. No. Annabelle, do you want to? It's a lightning round. Who is the Fool?
Yeah, sure. My Fool is in motion and on a path which seems to me like the path of the Dharma. And so what Samantha was saying about you're going and then you're coming back to the beginning, but there's no real end and no real beginning because you keep going. And in typical fashion for each week corresponding to a very specific event in my life, I'm packing to move. And so I am on the move, which, yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, okay. And Gilda, do you want to take a crack at this? We're doing the lightning round. So who is the Fool? Yep. You have to unmute though. Yes, go ahead. Oh, we still can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
There we
now
go.
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. For a long time, I used the tarot deck of the Liz Green Mystic tarot
Yeah.
for over 20 years. I no longer use it much. I would say a modern take on the Fool for me would be the click of zero, the zero zone, like homeostasis, where something clicks into nothing. And where that goes is,
Okay.
who knows?
Yeah.
So that's why as the Fool, it can take any
Form.
shape, any face, can be anything.
Okay.
Almost
so-
like a doppelganger arriving.
Right. Okay. Colleen, do you have any clue who the Fool is in the deck?
Not yet. Not
Okay. That's fine. Lightning round. Douglas, welcome, Douglas. Do you have a comment on who the Fool is?
Me. I don't know. What
Good
do you mean?
answer.
Who are you asking? Or
You.
who's- Okay.
Douglas, who is the Fool?
Yeah, I guess that'll be me. What are you saying though?
Okay. Well, we have.
Who are the choices? Who are the choices?
Well, it's not multiple choice. Okay, Jordy. Jordy, do you have a response? Jordy, do you have a response?
Now, I
Okay.
have been resetting, so I missed part of the presentations. To me, the Fool is an image.
An image of?
Arguably an archetypical image.
Okay.
But an image is not an archetype. It's part of the game. So the meaning can be somewhat blurry and overlapping with other meanings. Generally speaking, I will say is the one starting the trip. Totally unaware of what's going on.
Okay. So next question. I'm going to hold my answer to the end because I have a surprise answer. But
okay.
I
do want. I can put in now.
Say again.
I can put in now. I think the Fool is the one who does not believe in karma.
Ah, well, that's a good point.
Nice.
Brain is exploding right now. I mean, like with wisdom. I think I might have to leave early, Skip. Too much.
Well, Colleen, I appreciate you said that.
Well, we'll be talking about that later, Colleen, in terms.
I appreciate you brought that up, Colleen.
Right.
Very
Okay.
much.
All right. So
I often think that it's not a new idea.
No, and I'm right there with you. You're preaching to my choir. That's the spiritual shame to keep everybody in guilt.
Okay. So
everyone is saying something very wise, and it's just like.
Next question. Where is the Fool?
Ooh.
Wait, did Denise say? Or no? Or sorry.
Say again.
Oh, she did at the first. Can I
Okay.
just go? I started talking because I'm getting excited. No, or Nick, go. Sorry.
I've got it. All right. The Fool is down on your street corner, probably with dreadlocks, his life on his backpack, probably with a pit bull and a banjo.
Okay, Jordan. How about
The
you?
Fool, again, the same thing. The Fool is the psychic synapse, the interstice, the space between. The Fool lives as the abyss and the unknown and the unconscious.
Okay, Denise. No comment. Okay, Samantha, you want to respond?
The Fool is here.
Okay, good answer. Annabelle.
On the road.
Very good.
That Kerouac.
Okay, Gilda, quick answer.
It's waking you up. It's when you wake up.
Okay.
Waking you up.
Good point. Colleen, do you have a thought about where the Fool is?
I can't stop thinking white privilege.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Douglas.
Oh, yes, we will.
Douglas, where is the Fool?
That's unknown. It's unknown.
Okay. Jordy, where is the Fool? Yes. Okay.
Nice.
He's in the card. Okay.
And it's looking otherwise.
Right. Okay. So then the next question, when is the fool? So Nick, when is the
Now!
fool?
All times.
Okay, Jordan.
Always at one and the same time at all times.
Right. Annabelle, when is the fool?
Yeah. From Alice in Wonderland, jam tomorrow, jam yesterday, but no jam today.
Denise,
Always and only in the present moment.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Gilda, what is your answer?
He's behind you. That's why you cannot really see him.
Good answer. Colleen, when is the fool?
When I think I can overtake karma.
Ah, yes. Douglas, when is the fool?
We've got Hollywood squares going on here.
That's
Okay.
my way, I guess. I don't know.
All right, Jordy, when is the fool?
Permission to be frank.
Yes, be frank.
Be frank. The fool is always like in poker. Who's the sucker? If you don't know, it's you. The fool is always when you don't realize that that's all is you.
Righto. Okay. So my answer to the three questions is the fool is all of us, all the time, and wherever we are. Because when you open your eyes in the morning, you step out into a new day, and it's you that has to decide what's going to happen in your life from then on. And of course, we have the magician. About 5 months ago, we did the magician. And so that's the next step. But the fool is whenever we're embarking on something new, which can be just a new day. But so in between the president and the president-elect, who's the fool? Without political comment, just who is the fool?
The president-elect is the fool in this case, said she.
They are both and the fool.
Okay, Nick?
Yeah, I'd say we leave as clueless as we started. So I think they're both the fool.
Yeah. Denise, you agree?
The both.
Yeah.
Have
Gilda,
suppressed this person you speak of, this whatever name you said before Biden, like I suppressed that, so I just think it doesn't exist.
oh, okay. Gilda,
I think it's the collective that chooses them.
well, we're all the fools in that respect, certainly. Colleen,
Allows them to exist.
Yeah. Colleen, do you have a comment?
No, I'm too political.
Okay. Douglas, do you want to comment?
I guess they could both be the fool, but maybe one could be more foolish.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Jordy, do you have a comment?
Well, I was tempted to pass. I will say that neither of them. They are both all pros. They know what they are fooling around, and they know their game. Someone may be some fucked up than others, but that's in a different octave to speaking musically.
Yeah. Well, I sort of think of Isaac Dynson at the beginning of Out of Africa, the movie Out of Africa, where she makes a comment, sometimes it's a good thing that we don't know what's just around the corner for us. And of course, she ran into all kinds of trauma and difficulty in her life in Africa, especially. And, regardless of who we think, we're all the fool all the time, and we're all stepping into the next step of a new project. Every day is a new project. And if we're mindful of that, that makes a difference. And so, you know, we'll know by Wednesday whether the president will pardon himself. But you know,
which is an admission of guilt.
Right. So it's but it doesn't matter because he's not going to be go to jail for that. But the problem for him is, in terms of that, he's a fool if he takes that project of pardoning himself, because from that moment on, he's not pardoned. And having watched the man for the last 4 years, I don't think he can go a week without committing a federal crime. And that's one thing. And point two is that he no longer has the Fifth Amendment privilege if he pardons himself. If you're pardoned, you don't have the Fifth Amendment privilege,
right?
Which means that you must answer. Okay, if you're in a courtroom, you have to give an answer under oath. And if you lie, that's perjury. And that's a federal crime.
And just so everyone knows what the Fifth Amendment is, the Fifth Amendment right is that you were not required to self-incriminate yourself if asked a question where the response truthfully would incriminate yourself. So he will lose that right and have to.
Yeah, he loses that right if he pardons himself. If he successfully pardons himself, and that's a big question. You know, a couple of these questions that are coming up around the election are among the biggest questions that have ever been gone up to the Supreme Court, and they're not there yet. But if they go to the Supreme Court, it's kind of inevitable that the president will lose, even with 3 appointees, as he already has in a couple of cases, or at least one.
Why doesn't he just give himself a medal and then not take that statue bust of Lincoln that he was trying to carry out?
I would like to speak metaphorically as well, or figuratively rather, which is that I believe that both Biden and Trump and Kamala are the fool. I will speak of Biden and Trump, that I think Trump is a fool as presenting as a child in arrested development who wants other people to clean up his poopy diapers and has been given matches. And I think that Biden is at the stage where he's about to go from that to walking completely on his own, or walking with Kamala's guidance, and he can feed himself, and he can and he doesn't throw tantrums.
Well, he's obviously on a lifelong quest to become president of the United States, and so on Wednesday he'll realize that. But then he's stepping off because he has no idea what's going to come up next. Okay, none of us do, of course.
Right, I idealized him.
Right, and so all of us take these kind of decisions every day. You know, I took a decision in 2010 to fight foreclosure on my home, for example. And so after putting $2 million worth of legal time into the lawsuit, I finally moved out of the house. and so, what I didn't anticipate was how hard it would be, but I also didn't anticipate what a good lawyer I am. And so I didn't anticipate that I would recover my equity from my home by physically staying in it. And so, you know, it was a project. It just consumed a huge amount of my time, and I simply after 9 years, decided I didn't want to spend any more time with it. And I didn't pay the $2 million. I'm talking about it. If I were charging for my time, it would have been $2 million. So it's quite possible to put off any lawsuit, as our president has proven in many cases. But ultimately, you got to pay the piper. and so even though I would argue that I was wronged in my suit, and nobody would ever let me have a day in court so that I could prove it. So I fought to get that day in court, never got it. So and they couldn't have me do it, because if I did it, then 10 million other families would do it. But anyway, so that was a fool stepping off into a project who didn't know how hard it would be and how consuming it would be. But at the same time, I learned a valuable lesson about how the system really works, and quite painfully. And so, we're all fools. We all step off into Never Never Land. So Nick wants to give us a presentation about the Fool and the Tarot, though. So let me make you a co-host here,
Okay.
Nick. And meanwhile, I'll tee up the two cards side by side. I'm almost there, but I didn't make the PNG yet. So go ahead.
All right, let me get this set up. Okay. All right. Okay, so I want everybody to bear in mind, I'm going to make, I think, 5 historical examples, some from the distant past and some more recently. And I want everybody to keep in mind the whole time that I am talking about the tarot card of the Fool. Okay, so how to be a fool. Let's see here. Okay, so what do Socrates, Shakespeare's Jester, Ken Keezy, Christopher Mccandless, and Heath Ledger's Joker in the Fool card have in common? Pretty broad net, I know. Here is a photograph of each of the people which I just referenced in the previous slide. At the top left is Socrates. In the top center is the Shakespearean Fool or Jester. The top right is the novelist Ken Keezy. The bottom left is the American traveler Christopher Mccandless. Obviously the Fool card in the bottom center, and Heath Ledger playing the Joker at the bottom right. Okay, so the commonalities. These characters, fictitious or otherwise, stood on the fringe of society and offered a new perspective on the daily lives of the culture out of which they emerged. Rather than being down in the town and immersed in the flow of everyday life, they were out on the mountaintops, looking down and in on the lives of everyone else. Is it possible to be objective about something whilst you are involved in that something? That is the advantage of the Fool. No social creed, no cultural expectations, no long list of virtues, and no ties that bind. Okay, so now moving into these examples, I'm going to just read through this very quickly. So this is about Socrates and the Socratic method. Socrates was proclaimed to be the wisest man in Athens by the oracle at Delphi. Yet he scoffed at this notion and recognized this as a hindrance to the development of his work. In developing his philosophy, he would wander around the streets of Athens and engage citizens in conversation. Rather than attempt to make clear his towering intellect, he would seek out those with strong views, opinions, and beliefs, and ask to hear their perspective.
Days after the second impeachment of outgoing President Trump, and days before the...
He would listen to what they had to say eagerly and pretend to be a fool, knowing nothing of that which they spoke, and then await a chink in the armor of their views to appear. Once they had contradicted themselves, or any other number of disparities between their apparent philosophy and their lived experience had appeared, he would point this out to them, and in so doing, he would help them to think about the contradiction in their worldview. This became known as the infamous Gadfly technique, in which Socrates would goad Athenians into a deeper inquiry of their political, social, and religious views. Socrates was also well known for being the first philosopher in favor of turning away from the gods, saying that the gods were maniacs and drove men to do maniacal things to curry their favor, and instead that man should turn away from the mania of the gods to pursue an upright moral code of his own. All right, and now a quote about the gadfly. I am that gadfly which God has attached to the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you, arousing you and persuading and reproaching you. Okay, so moving on to the Shakespearean Fool. Shakespeare commonly used a fool or jester character in many of his plays. The fool was usually an apparatus designed to hold the mirror up to the elitism of the times and to help deflate the aristocracy and the king. The jester often played a foolish character, but much like Socrates, was truthfully the wisest person in the room. For all their lack of guile and innocence, they often convey an unbridled truth to the characters or audience that the otherwise bound characters don't have the clarity or lack of trappings to speak. And from a book called The Guide to Shakespeare by Isaac Asimov, that, of course, is the greatest secret of the successful fool, that he is no fool at all. All right, moving on to Ken Keezy. Ken Keezy, an American novelist and notoriety throughout the 50s and 60s, was a countercultural figure and author of the famous One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. After growing up through the 50s, he became disenchanted with his writing career and the general American lifestyle of the time, and with a group of his good friends and the aid of a magical potion, which will remain nameless, took a cross-country bus trip that changed American culture as we know it. Keezy's ethos was one of experimentation, social freedom, and willingness to engage life in a new and unprecedented way. By standing on the fringe of society and choosing not to live a conventional life, he embodied the same spirit of the Fool card, one of outsiderness that allows for an objective social critique of the current zeitgeist. The saying which he and his band of merry pranksters are best known for is never trust a prankster. The Fool card is one of a trickster, and here the words are interchangeable and truly embodied in Keezy and his prankster's ethos. They are essentially saying, trust me at your peril, take me as the kind fool, for I will trick you some old way, and we shall see who really is the fool. And you guys mentioned On the Road and Jack Kerouac, and also in Keezy's mythic bus trip across the country, they were heavily inspired by Jack Kerouac in that book, On the Road, but they went to meet Jack Kerouac in New York, and apparently he was completely freaked out by them. Okay, so now moving to Christopher Mccandless. Subject of a 1996 book titled Into the Wild, and in a subsequent movie based on the book of the same title, Christopher Mccandless was a young man who grew disenchanted with the spirit of the times. Unhappy with the various ways of living presented to him, the seeming madness of the rat race and modern life, and the suffering of the human soul, he traveled around the country for a long while, having encounters with those who picked him up on the road, and greatly impacting those with his young, wild, and free-spirited way of living. Eventually, he made it to Alaska, where he planned to trek into the remote wilderness and make a life for himself living in an abandoned school bus. Despite his intelligence, capability, and knowledge of the wilderness, he was unable to make it, and was later found in his school bus, deceased, having made a fatal mistake of eating poisonous berries. He was the fool on the cliff that did not listen to all the warnings along the way and then walked right off the cliff. The man, the book, and the movie have inspired many to take a step back from modern society, the crazy things we do just to survive, and the treadmill-like lives we live, to gain a new perspective on what the meaning of life in our time here is. Ultimately, his story is a tragic one of foolish decisions, being full of piss and vinegar, and paying the ultimate price. All right, and then finally, the Joker in the movie The Dark Knight. In the 2008 film The Dark Knight, starring Heath Ledger and Christian Bale, the Joker embodies a very similar energy that all the previously discussed characters and historical fool figures have, with a special emphasis on Socrates and the Shakespearean Fool. The movie tells the story of a city imperiled from criminality. The city's savior is the Dark Knight, Batman, who is something of a shadowy figure. He believes himself to be morally upright, yet there are several character flaws which, in his quest to overcome the criminals in the city, essentially put him on the same level as the criminals which he seeks to destroy. In an epic scene, the Joker and the Batman are in an interrogation room together. It is what the Greek playwrights would have called the anagnoresis, the point where a principal character learns or discovers another character's true identity or true nature of their own identity. In the scene, through clever wordplay, the Joker, who is the classic bad guy, makes clear to Batman that the two men really aren't so different. One honestly accepts his role as the bad guy, a sort of shadow redeemer, and the other struggles with his relative darkness through the delusions he holds about himself. One can easily see how the Joker is the shadow of Batman, reminding him that no matter how inflated and grandiose you become, and how detached you are from your own dark side, I am a part of you. He holds the mirror up to Batman and deflates his ego. Through the Socratic method, he points to the disparities between Batman's apparent righteousness and the fact that he kills for a living, and in the way of the Shakespearean Fool, makes even the viewer wonder who here really is the good guy and the bad guy. Right. So you see, the fool really is no fool at all. He is the trickster which helps, excuse me, he is the trickster which helps us to see our true selves. He crumbles outdated and outworn modes of existence by his being outside of those very modes of existence. He is the source of childlike playfulness that we seek halfway through life in the fabled stage called the midlife crisis. He is transitory, fleeting, slippery, and hard to grasp, yet pure, innocent, naive, and with us at every moment. In the words of the poet William Wordsworth, the child is the father of the man. And in the words of William Blake, if the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. All right, so that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know
Right.
that was really quick, and I went through a lot of stuff. But as I said, I was really trying to kind of pick up on the thread of this card throughout history, and I feel like there are several examples in real lives and in narrative throughout the last 1,000 years or so, or 2,000 years or so, and yeah, it truly is kind of a timeless image and scenario.
I'm glad you pulled in the Shakespearean Fool and the Socratic Fool, because it kind of reminds me of the old trickster phrase, all Cretans are liars, except Cretans could only tell the truth. So even it binds itself up in its own expression that the fool often isn't really one. That was, I appreciate that you going through the 5 examples plus the card. That was a nice turn of phrase.
Thank you.
Other comments?
If he persists in his coolness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important part of that sentence.
He will become wise.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I started to realize was that I was making one fundamental mistake in my life, which was that I wasn't persisting. and I was, when things would go away that I hadn't expected, I would just move on to something new. And I finally decided, nope, right now I'm going to plunk this desk down. I had this fantastic desk that was 7 feet in diameter. It was a circle, a half of a circle, 7 feet in diameter, wood, beautiful teak desk. And I told my colleagues, if ever you come in to this office and that desk isn't here, then you know that it's over. But otherwise, we're going to persist. And so ultimately, when we sold the company for, I'm not going to tell you how much, but we sold it, and I had to find a home for this desk. I ultimately had to give it to my the woman that had helped me build the company, and her husband made it into a bar. So that desktop is now a bar in their home.
Nice.
But
Still serving the fool.
Yes.
That's right. And still serving the fool when there's not COVID. I mean, I see that couple every 2 weeks because she gives me my allergy shots every 2 weeks, but we haven't been to the desktop since COVID started. So.
Well, that whole stay the course theme, I mean, as you know, as Colleen and you have both expressed, it's so important because the fool has an ever-present quality, and if he loses that, or actually, I shouldn't say he. I tried in my book even to not use any pronouns because of basically the well, I can't remember the word right now. Yeah, how funny, but you know, neither sex. But there is a complete eternity to the moment of the fool in that. And as long as that is present, the wisdom continues to fill.
Well, and you know, I started my efforts of projecting about Jung in 2010 with my website, which became this YouTube channel in 2016. And I had no clue what I was doing. And the first time I had a meeting of this group on July the 17th, 2016, I was the only person in the room, but I had Periscope going. So I had 35 people on Periscope that were watching me, including one from Argentina. I wonder if that was Manuela.
But that reminds me.
So I just kept talking. So let's give others an opportunity.
Others chance.
So
to make a little bit of it's like a disclosure that my birthday is the same as Ken Keezy. And Ken Keezy's birthday is also William Carlos Williams's birthday.
Oh.
Poet.
And it's also Hank Williams's birthday.
Oh, cool.
So that trio of very kind of wild thinking, free thinking, and you might not think of William Carlos Williams as being that way, but actually for a Paterson, New Jersey doctor, he was.
Yeah,
he was very free.
Country doctor with a wild side.
Exactly. So I have always identified as that fool.
That's really cool. I actually, when I was, I think, I don't know, I must have been like 21 or something. I met Ken Keezy's son, and I had the opportunity to get to see the bus that they took on their cross country trip and get inside of it and take some photos and everything. It was really awesome.
That wasn't his son who died, though, because he had a child who died in a school bus crash.
Well, it wasn't that one. I don't know.
Very, very sad. Yeah, it wasn't.
I don't know. His name was Zane. His name was Zane Keezy. I don't know which of his children it was, but he restored the bus that they took out on the original trip, and then made his own journey.
Yeah.
To me, an example of the full sub-archetype or subcategory that Nicholas, you cited, I'd have to see the picture, but it's the one, Shakespearean, yeah, of course, Shakespearean. Yeah. To me, that's what Dave Chappelle is.
Well, yeah, I'm
done, especially at the height of his career. You know, I think he's I don't know, a lot of comics, a lot of the best, in my opinion, they become political more and get more into activism, or so at the end of their career, like George Carlin or Dick Gregory.
Yeah.
But I would say that's the most, I admire him a lot because of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Dave Chappelle is one of probably the most brilliant people of our time. And also, I think with Dave Chappelle in particular, but with all comedians more generally, everybody kind of embodies that trickster archetype that's inherent in this card, where, like, you know, I personally am not really offended by anything that Dave Chappelle or really any comedian says, because I understand it's kind of in the spirit of comedy. I understand probably some people find some of it offensive, but the thing is, I think that comedians as a whole need that transgressive ability to kind of cross that line, to let us know where the line is, but also to hold a mirror back up to us, just like the Shakespearean Fool, to say like, damn, y'all are being ridiculous about this.
When you're relaxed, and this has been my experience of, when you're relaxed, you can learn better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that is, what's it called? It's something that's where it causes someone to remove their armor. Disarming. It's disarming,
Right.
when the truth is spoken in that type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why comedy is so edgy, because, you know, like I wasn't around when they had actual court jesters and everything, but I know that.
Yes, you are. They're still around.
They're here.
Oh my
They're
God.
I
here.
guess political commentators.
They're just better at concealing themselves now.
I
Yeah.
think political commentators, celebrities, you know, who have connections to political parties, perhaps especially across party affiliation. That'll happen sometimes. I think that you're in a position to do that because the person you're attempting to make laugh is the court itself, or the king or queen themselves. So if they can actually present the truth, like with Heath Ledger, but like he presents the truth to the person, but it's not in a sadistic way. It's in a way where you can learn to laugh at even yourself.
It's certainly that. And I think it's that movie, The Dark Knight. I mean, every interchange between Batman and the Joker is truly profound. I mean, if you go back and watch the movie kind of with this idea in mind that they're essentially two halves of the same coin, and like, you know, the dichotomy between them the entire movie is that one is the good guy and the other one is the bad guy, and it's really clear which one is which. But with this perspective in mind, it really, like I finished that slide by saying, it really makes you wonder who is the good guy and who's the bad guy. I mean, it really gets muddled, and I think that's both the advantage and disadvantage of this card, is that like it can really crumble some power structure or crumble some dynamic. I don't know if there's really anything that can replace it. I'm not saying that the Fool, in the case of the Joker, is like, but now I want to step up to the throne and rule in a more equal way. But I do think it's really interesting how there's both the capacity to invert things, but also to not replace them.
I believe that in response to what you said about can it be replaced, I believe no, because the Fool exists in a liminal space, which I understand to mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, liminal has something to do with being in between realms.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say liminal, that's how I intend it. I've never
Very much so
looked it up, so it's just contextually, that's my understanding. So that is because performance can be political, but performance is ideally about the pleasure principle, being pleased by pop music, being pleased by comedy, you know, entertainers in that way. And so it's like, I think that this is why I think pop culture is important to democracy. Because when it's entertaining, everyone likes it. And you can like it. Yeah, anyway, I don't have the main thesis. I'm developing as I'm talking, but to me, that's one of the things I enjoy about the idea of performance anyway. I also think that being overtly political, this is a little bit of a tangent, so I'll try to contain it, but can also be exhausting as a performer, because it's that line between the pleasure principle of I want people to like how this sounds, I want people to be attracted to it, I want people to laugh, I want people whatever, and then also having like a political conviction, which might be difficult to actually describe. It's not an academic process. You have to sort of
Doesn't comedy always come from the dark side?
Good comedy.
That's what I believe. From the dark side, or it might just be anxiety. Sometimes
That's a
it's
dark
that.
side.
The dark side.
Yeah,
Chime
but
in
it's not.
something here.
Yeah, go ahead, Gilda, go ahead.
I came across this way back that fame or anything that becomes really successful is based on feeding the need of that populace. So they have that need and therefore they are attracted to it, and it magnetizes them. It's not necessarily, I don't necessarily about, oh, it's making me feel good or this or that. It's about meeting a deep need. They might not be able to, they might, and that's what's sometimes not met in performance, and the ones that are backing performers and choosing, that they believe that we have to please the public or make them feel good or this or that. It's not about that. The real key is meeting their need, and when you hit the need, it just bursts.
Yeah.
It bursts into the biggest movement and change that you could possibly imagine.
We're already seeing it just in this group. We've got, let's see, at least four new people here tonight.
The rest are just pieces and parts, but that is the core.
Yeah.
Can I speak again? And I want to hand it off to someone else because I realized I've been like on the mic, very close to the mic because I'm getting excited. But I would like to add one thing to that, Gilda. Thank you for saying that. Skip and Gilda, you're freezing on my computer. Some folks are freezing. I don't know if YouTube audience is experiencing that, but
no, I'm still there.
Wow. So I would like to use an example of a famous person who I believe is successful right now in terms of their political message for the most part, but I also think she ignores some of the things that are important to me, which I would say is Lady Gaga. And I'm not criticizing her because she's done her best. She's spoke out about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. She spoke out about feminism. She's done all those things. I can think of other things as well. She's never spoke directly about race, which would be my one, I think someone should tackle that in some way. But Denzel Washington, I met him at my school, at my theater school. I went to NYU for theater, and I was invited to this talk Denzel Washington was giving. And can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so weird. A lot of people are freezing. Anyway, so something that a student asked him the question, because a lot of us who were either in, a lot of Black film students were invited, or like me, I'm mixed, and I was a part of the, we called ourselves, we're from the African diaspora. So anyone with African ancestry could, was welcome to join. We had some Latinos who joined as well. And basically, she asked him, why do you think you didn't get the Academy Award for playing Malcolm X? You got the Academy Award for playing a criminal, a bad cop in Training Day. And it was so interesting because his answer to us was that people were so upset about, because the critique is, and this is an example where for me, political and entertainment starts to get tricky. This is like the outer edge. He said that he felt that he was closer in character to the Training Day guy, which is based on a real cop who was actually Latino, who was known to be a really dirty cop. But he said he got hate mail, he said, from Black people, saying like, how dare you, who felt that they betrayed kind of the public image of Black people. I just lost you guys. But basically he was saying that as an actor, he had more fun going into those dark sides. So I think that's an example of, if you're a performer who's from any oppressed group, people expect you to sort of carry the whole group, and it's hard sometimes because you want to be free as well.
I think also I would just speak to one element of creativity that I've personally experienced. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a piece of what you are saying, what Denzel Washington or surely any creative person has been up against, but merely just my own personal experience is that in making music, like take, for example, rock and roll or jazz, any kind of genre that's fairly developed, people perceive it as there being these rules that you have to follow. And while that is certainly true, I think also it's important to not necessarily, it's important to know the rules, but also to not necessarily play to what you think people expect of you. I think like what Gilda was saying about, there's a need in the population to which you play to, or you do a production for, or you act to and for. I think that there's a degree or a certain spontaneity in the reaction and the meteoric rise of certain people when they really just strike that chord or hit the note that the people really need, rather than just being like, this is what all the great people have done, I'm going to do that. So
you have to be a fool to go strike that chord.
Right.
Yeah, and it really is
to
kind
break
of
the rules.
It really is
go
kind
ahead,
of an
Colleen.
organic process.
Let's hear Colleen. Sorry, we're not
Say
hearing
it,
you.
say it, Colleen.
We're still seeing you as
You're muted.
Sorry, excited dog in the background. Is a sense of you can take it or leave it. When a comedian lays it out that way, or a jazz musician who's confident about what it is that he's doing his improvisation about, that there's this attitude of you can take it or leave it that I appreciate. And that it enables me and the people around me to take this in a different way. All of us taking it in a different way, but that attitude of take it or leave it, whether I'm sculpting, painting, but politicians, for instance, don't have the take it or leave it attitude. It's you better believe me or else, and there's something else going on. I say politicians, I'm preachers, but there's that difference that I think that Samantha, I hear you referring to that as you talk about delivery.
Yes. And yeah, it gets a little, I hear what everyone's saying, but I also see the historical context of these things, and specifically a racial context. So with the interplay between Black and white Americans. So I guess being both of those things, I have to like invent a way of being that like I don't have a roadmap for. So that's okay, because I'm here. We don't have to resolve that tonight.
okay.
But it's interesting.
All right. Well, we've gotten a bit far afield, so let's go back and have Nick explain to us what is the significance of the difference of these two cards. On the right, you have the Bota deck, and on the left, you have the Rider-Waite.
And as I scan the card over, I don't know that there is a difference at all.
Yeah, I'm not seeing
think that
much.
They're pretty much the same card. With certain cards, they make significant departures and kind of either go their own way or they restore the cards back to earlier versions, like in the Marseille tarot. Right. But with this one, it seems to be
I'm
tried
noticing
and true.
A circle in the one on the left.
Is
that the moon?
Yeah, that's.
Is that representing the moon?
That's the zero for the zero card.
For the zero card. Okay.
And that's why I call that circle. Whereas you have an obviously font ellipse on the right card that's a zero.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Yeah.
And that also could be a day sky moon. That's a good point.
The opposite of the sun, which is so therefore both are present, because we also think that the Fool carries something tragic, or things that happen that is not all, let's go find out.
That's a great point, because also if that's a day sky moon, then the card on the right has no number. It's not even zero. And that to me is I like that as a day sky moon, because it makes it more pure of just, it's the Fool. It is what it is.
Yeah, it allows the presence of the lunar.
Right.
There
The
is
inner
one.
lunatic, you know.
Sorry, Gilda, I have to ask you, are you using, what kind of a mic are you using? I just love the mic, the sound that we're getting from your mic. All right.
I'm just using a laptop from 2009.
Oh, okay.
A Mac. It's a Mac laptop.
You have it set up very well. I like that.
Okay. There's no setup. It's whatever is in it.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Hebrew lettering on the right is also a significant difference. I don't know what it means. I'm sure.
Skip, if you'll pull those two cards back up, there is one thing that I would like to attempt to elucidate. We'll see if I can pull it off.
All right. I'll give you a chance.
Maybe do a little performance art here. See if this.
Okay, go ahead.
See if this comes up. Okay.
Do
What, Samantha?
you need a beat?
Gosh,
that's excellent.
A tarot rap. God. Okay, cool. So the thing that it's just occurring to me is that this white sun is significant, and you know that's been something that's been in my mind before. But just to give you an idea of my thinking here, in terms of the Hebrew letter, the Kabbalah, and astrology, kind of to just synthesize all those into one meaning with a card. The Hebrew letter is Aleph, and it also means the Ruach Elohim, which is the spirit of God. And the white sun at the top represents the top sphere on the tree of life, Kether. And it's the thing that's coming up for me is that it also represents Uranus. So all three of those things make up the symbolism. And in the stories in Greek mythology about the kind of the more or less like the Genesis story of Greek mythology has to do with Oranos or Uranus, and essentially he was the spirit of the sky, and he and Gaia were one. And as I understand the story, essentially the sky and the earth were mashed together, and there was no space in between. There was no air in between the two. They were just kind of a confused mass, and they were one. And he would shove his children down into Gaia, into the stomach of Gaia, and pretty much just force her to deal with this. You know, like that. You know, if I can speak frankly, you know, rape and lack of consent is a big theme in tons of mythology. And there's kind of that theme in the Genesis story of the Greek world that essentially he was raping Mother Earth and shoving his children down into her and just forcing her to deal with this, until one day she convinced her child Kronos with a sickle to cut her way out of the womb. And then Kronos, through doing that, then goes out and castrates his father and renders him impotent, and then he pulls the two worlds apart and then makes a place for humanity to develop in between these two worlds. So the reason I think that is significant is because in this card there's this fullness, and everything is kind of one. And I think that that's both positive and negative. You know, when everything is one, it's really difficult to make a distinction between emptiness and fullness. They're kind of the same thing.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I'm kind of at the tail end. If you have something to say, you can go ahead and say it.
Well, one thing is the male-female presence is also on the card on the right. So this can be 0. We talked about it being the midday moon. It's also female because it's circular, it's, you know, vaginal. And then on the right, we have something, it can also mean lack of meaning or the emptiness, like the presence of an absence.
Fullness or emptiness. Yeah, I mean, a circle could be everything or nothing.
And then the symbol on the right, I would say it represents the male in terms of, if the one on the left, where we see the one on the left representing space, the one on the right represents presence. presence, meaning, objectivity, the one on the left, and I'm talking about the bottom left and right of the right card, everybody, and YouTube audience. The one on the, where the one on the left represents space, the one on the right represents meaning.
Right. So Patricia asks a question from YouTube, which is, Nick, can you explain the meaning of the cliff he's about to jump in?
Well, I don't know if I can explain the meaning of the cliff independent from the overall meaning of the card. I mean, I think it essentially plays to the fool idea that, you know, he's just kind of aimlessly about to wander off into the abyss.
Well, or stepping off into the next project, you know.
Well,
Or,
if I
I mean,
may,
if his next project is splatting on the ground.
well,
Well,
if I may,
I'd
the
like
Irish
to
proverb
add-
applies. The Irish proverb of "May the ground always rise up to support your next step," especially when there was no ground there when you began the step.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I like
Right.
that.
Go ahead, Gelda.
Some of these symbols are really ancient, and the rose being one of them,
Mhm.
and they're related to death, to as a cycle. And the fool is carrying the rose, which is a form of death or beginning, because they're both the same. And also, if you carefully look at the colors, on top you have white, and also below the dog is white, and the sleeves of his coat are white, which means that he carries the if the enlightened quality of light that is represented with white. And you also find it at the peaks of the mountains.
Mhm.
But he, in essence, he's going through a death cycle, death rebirth cycle. So he carries the flower that's already blossoming, ready
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, purity and so
I-
on.
I just
Yeah.
want to say that the only other card in the Bota deck that has a white rose is the death card,
Mhm.
which is just
Yeah.
plays perfectly to what you're saying.
so as we know, the cards can also be shuffled, right? So when we went through the major arcana, my understanding is started at the card that had the number 1. I wasn't here yet. Which is
The magician.
the magician, yes. Start with the magician and then end with the world. Okay, so what I was trying to say is basically the image itself is a cliffhanger, if you will. Could you show the image?
That's good.
We don't know where the story is going. Okay, so could you show the image?
Of the world card?
No, of the
The
fool.
fool?
I wanna.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and this might be kind of where you're going, to imagine like the world is giving birth to the fool. Like they're just
Well,
it never ends.
there's meaning within meaning. So there's the binary meanings, and then there's the circular, more like a circle within a circle. But who can put it on the screen? Skip, can you put it on the screen?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, I need to refer to it in order to make my point. And I'm a visual learner and thinker.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about ambiguity in as specific a way as possible. So the many different versions are, he's going to, because look at the, first of all, we're also saying they really is what it is. But because we also have the feminine indication of the flower and the masculine indication of the pole as well. And they actually look kind of genderless, given that they're wearing a sort of dress as well. So I imagine that on Pixie's part, who was painting this, I imagine that was intentional. So Pixie painted the one on the left. Also, you'll notice that the one on the left has swarthier skin. She was a white passing mixed woman of, I think it was Jamaican ancestry originally.
Yeah.
So on the left, I'm just assuming on the right, the person who made it was Caucasian. Anyway, but that wasn't the point. The point is, if you look at the stride, it could be that the next step is off. We also don't know how, we don't really know how high they are. So the white capped mountains in the background indicate maybe they're high, but in the mountains, high altitude, but there's no snow on this mountain. So if they stepped off, would it just be a short fall, or would they actually fall to their death? And that's one thing that's ambiguous. The other thing about it is that the dog, I like that Gilda brought up the dog, because white is associated in European traditions with the color white, with more innocence, right? And so if you look at the Fool, I said the Fool was the inner child in our kind of quick round cipher. However, the Fool can also be an adolescent, and in this case, the dog would be the inner child. The dog could also fall off the cliff. The dog could be hurt. Maybe that's what led the Fool to the tower moment. Maybe that to mourn the death, so I just wanted to point that out. So whether he's successful or not, or whether she lives or dies or not, and all that is totally open.
Actually, keep this up. I'm glad you brought that up, Samantha, because if you notice in this card, all of the elements are present except for water. And there may be ocean at the bottom to splash into, because it's the unseen, unconscious depths below.
Yeah, and the
Well,
snow,
there are a couple of things that I want to say just along that line of the mountains being frozen. In this card, the mountains are frozen, and then we've got the magician, and then we've got the high priestess, and her robes flow down and turn into water. And then just beyond that, the empress, the water of the high priestess flows behind her as a river and then comes down and makes a pool right in front of her. And in several other of the cards, a stream flows through it, like the death card and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's definitely this idea that
this is where we go back as well to the therapeutic process, and why, tarot can be used in counseling. It can be like fun game, but it can also be cathartic and therapeutic in a way. I don't say I'm a therapist with what I do when I read for people, but it can be therapeutic. Sometimes it's just funny, but those in that case, if we're looking at this as a therapeutic tool, a psychological tool, the snow is frozen. So that can represent, there's some emotions that aren't clear, or maybe they're frozen up. When we reach our adolescence and we experience, I'm going to use the word trauma. I don't know a better word for it, but there are ways in which we have to adapt our inner child to the world or to our family structure to survive, to protect ourselves, right? The things we choose to hide or highlight about ourselves often occurs during adolescence. So
I'd like to point out that the sun is really quite bright and hot. And that snow isn't going to last a whole long time in this situation.
Right.
There will be running water.
Okay.
Eventually. But I also, have you discussed the purse that he's carrying?
That's an important piece.
I mean, this is a very feminine symbol, very feminine, and it's red, and it has the rose on it, and the feather is pointing to it. I think that's a very important sign on this card.
Sure.
It is, and it also makes allusions to Pandora's box, which if properly translated is not box, it's actually vessel or container, which is of self. And that's actually in the Fool's blind spot, that 25 to 30 degree spot behind your head where you can't see. And so there's this unpackaged or message that has not been unpacked in that bag and that purse. And you're right, it is a purse because they both have the flap strap and the button. It's not just a bag, it's actually a purse.
Yeah.
So what it is, it's also a bag, it's also a purse, because that when a child goes off and has fun, sometimes, to school or whatever, sometimes their parent, we think of our mothers putting food into our lunch boxes or whatever, they're going on a trip of some kind. It's also like a hobo stick, right? So again, that's the ambiguity of the object. But what I wanted to say is, if this person did have their parent, probably the mother, fill the bag, or everyone, put something in the bag, and they don't know what's in there, to me, that represents family of origin, the tools that we have to make our journeys. So are they sufficient or not would be something that we'll see as the Fool progresses. And what does the Fool need to acquire or give away in order to make a safe, productive journey?
Yeah,
And Colleen brought up the feather. Go ahead, Gilda.
Oh yeah, the feather.
Go ahead.
The comment about the purse being a container, it rings true in many ways, that the Fool, we are vessels, and that is separated, meaning that he's not aware that he's a vessel because he's carrying it back there as an objective reality. But we're simply vessels that channel energy or source or everything else. So in here, he has it back there, and he's carrying it, and is separated from himself.
Yeah, it hasn't been opened up yet.
Exactly. It's separated.
Yeah.
So.
And Colleen, you mentioned the feather.
He packed the bag, didn't he?
What is that?
Who packed the bag? Who put the stuff in the bag? That's his bag.
It's still a container separated from himself. I mean, are we understanding that the tarot is an occult? It has all these layers, like the white is
Right.
anyone who's a meditator will know that when you reach the high crown, the color is white, is not black, is white.
And
so, I mean, these references are very clear here. They're just in symbolic images.
Right.
in some Asian cultures, white also signifies death. So it's
Yes.
that duality again, between purity and death.
I think that was an important point of he packed his bag, Douglas. But I think even further than that, if he packed the bag, but with traumas and experiences that he may not be aware of yet. So these could be psychological events.
What do you think might be? What do you think might be in the bag?
Well, that's the question for the ages. I think his higher self. Actually, one second, Nicholas, if you could. Colleen brought up the feather pointing, and the feather is traditionally seen as higher flight of higher mind. The feather, especially the red feather, is higher flight of mind. So that higher mind is leaning to, dancing towards, pointing from his crown chakra, basically, to this unseen source of what's in the bag.
Well, or it's pointing to the
towards
sun.
the sun, yes.
Yeah,
what does the fool think is essential enough to bring on his journey? Lunch?
Could be.
Paul doesn't think about that.
A book?
It's luggage. The luggage that
a cell phone. No, go ahead.
The luggage that we imagine to be essential on a journey, whatever that may be.
Let me just get a couple of words in here. You know, I'm not speaking with any kind of final authority on here, but I can answer most of these questions, at least based on some of the literature that I read with these cards. So it's one thing that's interesting with these symbols is that unlike most of the cards, these symbols are used in several other of the cards. So the Fool has this wand that's over his shoulder, and you know his pack is behind him. He's kind of unaware of it, like you guys have said. But the only other card where there's a staff just like this one is the Hermit, in which there's also a character up on a snowy mountaintop, just like this one. He's kind of right back where he started. Also, the dog. You know, people have asked about the cliff, and I think the dog was mentioned. The literature that I've read says that the Fool, like I said, represents spirit. So in this setting, it represents the expansive nature of spirit and the kind of nagging nature of the ego in the dog, saying, maybe don't be so expansive and unbridled. Maybe we need to just
it's also just instinct beyond the ego.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then also the other thing that I want to talk about is two things. The satchel here, it has an eagle on it, which is a sign of exalted spirituality. Zeus was an eagle. Also, you know, the American eagle. Several mythologies make use of the eagle, and it also has the Eye of Horus on it. as the
Oh,
eye.
Right.
But the
Yeah, it
literature,
does have the eye of Horus, but
Where?
but
yeah,
okay,
you
Oh,
have to be
I-
pretty sharp to get that.
let me get through these last couple of things. So in the literature, it says that in this purse, he holds the tools to complete the journey. He holds the tools of all the four elements being, I mean, obviously this is, this wouldn't work logically, but in the satchel, there's a wand, there's a cup, there's a sword, and there's a pentacle, but he's yet to open it up and realize that he has the tools to complete the entire journey in his bag. Also, the red feather on his head is kind of plays to the idea of innocence and also lack of desire, because red is always the color of desire. And the only other card in the Rider-Waite deck that has a feather in his hair is the child on the horse in the sun card.
Mhm.
So there's that childlikeness and lack of desire again playing out in that same card. So I think those are all the symbols. I'm, like I said, I'm not speaking as a final authority, but I do have an answer for most of those things that I think can give some perspective.
Nick, I think that's a good point about the tools in the bag, and the bag wouldn't fit the tools. The tools are too big. So I think there are the seeds of the tools. So they're just raw elements in the bag that the tools
Yeah.
can be made from once it's unpacked.
Well, also there's reference here to astrology, of course.
The
Right.
sun and moon.
And also it could be a reference to Buddhism, because
Right,
this-
because there's 8.
yeah, there's 8 sides of this mandala, and it's also yellow, so it might be a reference to Buddhism. Go ahead.
I'd also like to point out that the original, from what I understand, the oldest tarot deck that was found, okay, again, we're going to talk about Europe, because every culture has its own form of divination, and at some point I think you can lose a thread in history to really know where did it originate from. Although the first person was found in Africa, though. Let's just forget that. So it depends on like what you think tarot's origins were as well, because if it did start as a game, anything recorded as in the written word would have been an interpretation. If it started out as art first, that would be another thing as well. So everything is through interpretation and history. And even the conversation we're having is we're co-creating meaning.
Right.
I lost the thread of the specific thought I was going to share. I just wanted to point out the sun and the moon are added on the right and they aren't on the left.
Yeah, let me add a few comments that are on the YouTube channel here. Justin makes the comment, Aleph is related to shamanjim, having meanings such as the beginning word, the word which hovered above the waters before creation, and God's residence in the heavens, for what it's worth. Patricia says that in some cards, the dog is black, and obviously the shadow can be black.
What are some of the?
No, wait a minute.
remember my
No,
comment.
wait a minute, please. Manuela signed off, but she said, "Good night. I have to leave. Hope the hard times in life don't let the fool inside you who believes die. But also don't be too naive to fall 2 times in the same cliff, from the same cliff." Okay, that's a wish from Manuela. Justin says, Freud would probably say that the fool doesn't pay sufficient attention to the subconscious. Well, okay.
What would Jung say?
On this Jungian YouTube channel, we don't care what Freud would have said.
Freud will tell us about his mother.
Anima and animus is also present there as well. If the fool is masculine, or the fool is masculine, then the animal can represent the feminine, and vice versa.
Good point.
Locked up.
Good point.
Locked up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I want to show the Stephen Heller page on the Fool here. That's the next step, and we're running short on time, believe it or not, although it doesn't look like it, but I'm worried because I have a lot of material here too.
While you pull that up, there's just one more quick thing I want to say. You know, the frozen mountains also imply this kind of cyclical nature of water, where it's frozen, it melts, it goes down, it flows into a stream, it flows back into the ocean, it evaporates, it comes back down as rain, freezes, and it's just like the tarot makes this gigantic circle. Also, water makes that same kind of circle, and it's in a frozen state. But in later states, it's moving, and then it goes back up to the sky.
Well, Nick, that's important too, because of the potential emotional energy. As it melts, there will be emotions later.
Right, and there will be energy which fills in the archetype,
right,
and gets you moving. Okay, so the Fool, the zero arcanum, on the sunlit height of a summit striding toward a precipice, a youthful figure appears in a graceful dance-like pose. The white rose of purity is in one hand, with the other he holds a staff with the bag of the traveler, engaged in the eternal journey of the spirit. His eyes are fixed upon the heavens, and at his heels a small dog, symbol of the instincts, gallops along joyously. The sun behind him is rising, for the divine sun never can reach its zenith, but ascends forever. The eternal traveler, who freely roams over all regions of being, prepared and ready for any task, be it liberation or limitation, is regarded a fool, but is master over all. And one thing I want to bring to your attention is the quote from Dr. Jung in his letter to one of the pastors, where he said, "We don't know where the spirit is taking us." And his criticism of Christianity, at least, was that Christianity has been hypnotized by the Pentecost instead of looking forward to where the spirit is taking us. And so he goes on, keynote, the pure essence of the soul takes the last step, completing the conscious linking of all aspects of the supernal states of divinity. It having become one with all, its future is the future of a being whose growth and splendor have no limit. Motto, I went from God to God until they cried from me, in me, O thou I, from Abu Yazid al-Bistami. Meditation, the sublime purity of ineffable essence, is present within my being. I recognize myself as an essence without form, without qualities and limitations. I am all in all. I am no things, but I am present in all things. I am the terminal point of all and the first origination of beginning. I was and was not. I am and am not. I shall be, yet I am utterly without a future. I am a circle with its center everywhere and circumference nowhere. Childlike and ancient, young and old, new and aged am I. Purer than the snow, more radiant than the sun, smaller than the smallest atom, greater than the vastness of space. All these I am. I am the all and the naught. I am free. So I am and was and shall be, within being and in non-being, within time and out of time, ever and never. Amen. Okay, so.
Word. That sums it.
What was the comment?
The word.
I said word. That sums it.
Priceless.
What book is that?
This is from The Fool's Pilgrimage by Stephen Heller. It's a small book, but it's a good book. We've been referring to it regularly.
And
So-
Heller is Hoeller, Stephen Heller.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Um,
summed it, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. Okay, now let's see. I think we should get on to some of our fun cards here. And in keeping with our custom here, I want to go to the She-Wolf deck and the Starman deck. And this is to show now other approaches to the Fool, other artists and how they have approached the Fool. We'll start with the She-Wolf, so I'll bring her down here so we can see her better. It's maybe too big. One down. Okay. All right. So the She-Wolf. It's kind of interesting the way she's done this. I keep forgetting that I have to go to the beginning to get the Fool in most of these things. Okay, the Fool. Uranus is the planet. The keys are journey, leap, passion, trust, void, artwork, illumination. In a dynamic landscape, a woman and two wolves emerge and make themselves known in this wild space. In traditional tarot imagery, the Fool is accompanied by a dog, man's best friend, helping our protagonist along the journey. Here, the two wolves symbolize the wild woman archetype, as expressed so vividly by author and wild woman herself, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She says, quote, "A healthy woman is much like a wolf, robust, chock full, strong life force, life-giving, territorially aware, inventive, loyal, roving," unquote. So here we begin, and we are the wolves, and they are us. They are here to guide and protect us. Beneath the rock faces is a void that has opened up in the ground, a cosmic space where the unknown is in all of its fearsome splendor. The closest wolf seems to be heading for it while keeping its gaze on us. The woman is taking her step off of the cliff, about to dive into. It is the ultimate act of surrender as she makes the leap from her head thrown back, with her head thrown back in ecstasy. Light, the beginning of an epic journey, the journey of the soul, with perfect love and perfect trust. It is time to go and let whatever may be, be. The utter joy and lust for life pushes us onwards and allows us to overcome our fears. The fears thus become small and insignificant in the face of the grand quest toward the random or whatever will bewilder. Unquote. Shadow, there is a difference between surrender and recklessness, and perhaps the journey has been undergone at the expense of others or the expense of our long-term well-being. There also may be powerful workings of fear occurring, which are heavily influencing the journey itself. It may be wise to take a closer look at our fears and overall motivations and reset our direction. Mantra, the unknown is a friend I haven't met yet. And what I wanted to comment on in the Heller, where it was showing the Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life, is that it's in the path between
Kether and Hagma.
Keth and Hakma, which is wisdom. And so in order to gain wisdom, you have to step off, is the point that I wanted to make about that. Any comments about this card before I go on?
Yeah, I just have one thing, and it's indirectly related to the card, but it's actually, oddly enough, something I've heard Stephen Heller say, and I can't remember if he was quoting Jung or he was talking about something that was derived from an exchange that Jung had with somebody else that he knew. But and maybe somebody can correct me on this because I don't know that much about zoology, but apparently wolves eat exclusively fresh meat. And he was saying that wolves live on fresh meat just like humans live on meaning, which I thought was really interesting.
That's nice.
And okay, sorry, I should let that land for a sec because that was a great comment.
Yeah.
That being said, since this is a class about individuation, pups actually, I think this is all wolves. I don't think it's a particular species, but when they're really young, they can't digest their own meat. So the male will actually, the female provides milk, but the male will go and eat and then regurgitate. And the pups will actually lick certain glands that help the adult to do that. But I bring that up because that has to do with family of origin as well. We are the ones who they give us what they have to sustain us. Mm-hmm. And then when we are ready to move on, we decide, we need to learn to hunt ourselves. We need to learn what animals hunt ourselves. And to me,
and also that's a really good point, because they also they don't have the enzymes to digest greens. And so that's why they eat the stomach, for example, of rabbits first, because the rabbit has pre-digested the greens that they need. So the fresh meat and then the entrails give them basically the ability to eat greens, but with not having that enzyme in their system that would digest them.
And wolves they're pack animals, but they're also lone wolves, right? So it's like, it's very much about us. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Skip, you mentioned the jumping off, and that was like Debbie's the disappearing path. To gain the wisdom, you have to have the disappearing path.
Yeah, you have to go on the path in order to have experience, which gives you wisdom.
And then there's a make your own path from that point.
Can I share something?
Yes, go ahead.
I find it somewhat perhaps a little egocentric, the fact that the human is above it all, is above the sun, it's the highest point in this whole card. So it's almost not like it's embodying it is claiming to be the highest point in the card.
Yep.
Or coming from the highest is the highest.
I think it gets more wild as it goes down. I mean, you could even say that wolf on the mountain is a German is a dog or something, and and then it becomes more wild. Like it looks like it's on the hunt or on the search for something. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Other comments on this card before I go to the Starman?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is just that I agree with what Gilda is saying, and that I generally, which I mean, I guess one could speculate it has to do with my gender and disposition and all of that stuff, but I don't particularly resonate with these cards, and I find that the symbolism and the explanations of a lot of the cards seem to more or less be regurgitation of occult readings and stuff like that, and that's cool, but I don't know, it just seems kind of uninformed from a place of wisdom.
I would like to make one last comment on this card, Skip, if I may. The imagistic writing in this card is absolutely Jungian clear. Thonic below and the process of the Newman above. So you have the light above, and then the middle ground at the top of the hill, the pensive wolf the aware wolf, the intelligent wolf, the watching wolf. And then as it's coming down through this light that's coming through that opening between the rocks, it's getting more and more raw and depthfully honest as to its own animal nature as it moves towards that void. So to me, that sonic numinosity of self just goes top to bottom or bottom to top, and it tracks that lineage of individuation of the both and, I think, straight through.
I have a question for Skip that is related to what Nick just said in terms of using that as an expansion point that was raised. I think there's some questions implicit in Nick's comment, so I'd like to attempt to answer. Is this card was created by, oh, okay. So there's the deck, right? And there's the art, whoever painted this, whoever created the visual, whoever
Divining Wolf.
Yeah, and whoever, so that was Divining Wolf is their name, of the painter?
No, Devani. Devani is her name, D-E-V-A.
Divining Wolf. Okay, so she created the visual. Did she write the book as well?
Yes.
Okay, so well, there's something important about that, because this is an example of, like how I was saying, being mixed. I feel I'm using that more metaphorically when I refer to like racial identity, but there's truth in it, is that like you have to make your own path, right? If there's not an example of that. So what I'm saying is the meanings that are in this are not yet codified, because the decks that preceded them, we assume, come from more of a patriarchal lineage, if you're from the South, so
it is lineage. You were right.
I was thinking about that earlier today, but I want to just honor your regionalism. So,
my regionalism was wrong.
No, stop being difficult. Okay, so they can both be right. The point I'm trying to make is this is highly subjective, and yet without speaking to this individual, we wouldn't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like one through line of this tarot deck that I like is that in the nakedness, it's nudity, but the sexuality is very, I want to say, wholesome. It's wild and wholesome simultaneously. And to me, that in and of itself is a political statement. It's a branching off of how we see the nudity used in like even Rider-Waite or Tarot Marseille. It's a different type. It's a little edgier, but it's also associated with primal power. And we see that in the wolves as well. So that's right. I have to go to school and write an essay about this, and we don't have time for that. But I felt like I wanted to say that.
All right. Well, let me just observe that my purpose here is to show the idea of the fool, the archetypal idea of the fool, in as many different images and with as many different descriptions as possible during this 2-hour period, so that we can give viewers the opportunity to make their own judgments, because obviously we can all look at these things differently, and as we each have expressed these things from our own perspective, and so while I understand Nick's points, at the same time I very much like this particular card, and I've been enjoying the Divining Wolf approach. Let's move on to the Starman Tarot, since this is quite a different approach. and I'll just read what it says here. First of all, there's a sidebar. Take the leap of faith and be free. Step out from the void. Embrace your inexperience. Live in your potential. Explore your world. Reversed, feeling restrained, acting rashly, upsetting others. Stay back, seek to unblock yourself from the changes you face. Okay, here's what he says. The sacred clown, or Heyoka, from the Lakota tradition, knows that nothing we think is actually true. No belief is fixed. As trickster and shaman converge, he probes beneath the veil of normality to reveal the astonishing and unexpected. Indeed, the gap between you and what you have understood to be you. His words are like a lightning bolt, which can pierce the heart. This card depicts the sacred clown dressed in a black and white striped antler hat. Yeah, I guess so. Grinning mischievously as a burst of flames shoots from his finger. Naked and painted to the waist, he is surrounded by walls of garish graffiti, which appear to be alive, morphing, moving strands of hypnotic color, bursting with energy. Standing on a path bedecked with sharp-toothed traps of ill-gotten gold, he appears unconcerned that they might cause him injury. An almighty star ball of molten fire glows and puckers close behind him, and he is indifferent. He is touched by everything and damaged by nothing, seeing the cosmic joke, the ultimate illusion, where we see limitation, fear, and pain. At once, both innocent and dangerous, his fire pokes holes in the things you take too seriously. He puts a pin into the puffed up balloon of your story and triumphs and woes of the past, the projected fears of the future, because he understands the primordial energy of nature is beyond good and evil, beyond human ideas of right and wrong. Joy and pain are united, two sides of the same coin. For me, no other character no other character so epitomized Bowie as the Heyoka, the rapier sharp, wise innocent, the sacred clown. He was an absolute master of piercing reality to expose the absurd. He was never afraid to experiment and discard the design brief when something perverse and unexpected caught our attention. The enlightened player of the game of life, the contrarian, the challenger of convention. He gave me full permission to risk dancing at the creative edge. Often his visits to our studio would result in howls of laughter, like the time I smuggled a full-size replica of a bull's head into the studio under the cover of darkness to avoid a media frenzy and the outrage from animal rights activists waiting in the wings. They were under the false impression that Bowie had sacrificially had a bull killed for the outside photo shoot. That provocative spirit of the sacred clown travels through each card of the Starman Tarot, twisting things around and turning them on their head. Christ the sacred clown mocked orthodoxy. Buddha the sacred clown mocked ego attachment, while Gandhi mocked money and power. He invites you to risk big, that you must risk the sting and bite of life to experiment its true wonder. The sacred clown invites you to live in the exciting potential and freedom of each moment. The Heyoka provokes, prods, and startles you out of hypnotic dance of monkey mind. He bids you to be aware that you are not the stream of fear and desire endlessly surfacing, but rather the expansive freedom in which these issues appear and disappear. When you say I, you are referring to your story. Your story is not true. The burdens you have carried for so long can be put down because they never belonged to you. Something new awaits you on unexplained paths to step into life fearlessly, renew, refresh, and rebirth yourself. You are a child, innocent and free. Reversed, feeling trapped by the burden of responsibilities in the past, there is a danger of acting rashly with little regard of other people's suffering. While it is appropriate to follow the heart and a true calling, it is immature to run away from one's obligations. Unfinished business will follow you around, so take stock despite any impatience and longing for adventure. The power to act rather than react. Settle your accounts, research options, and present your position so that it has some chance of being understood. Boy.
Okay.
It's a mouthful.
Comments on this?
I guess it's like the Joker and Batman, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It looks an awful lot like Jared Leto's Joker. Joker.
Yeah.
Can I share something with you guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So as
Oh,
with
you
all-
want to share it on the screen?
Yeah, just very quickly.
All right, go ahead.
So as with all of us, I have many facets, and this is one of my many facets when I was a much younger fool. This is one thing I really like to do. So the graffiti in the background made me think of this. I grew up painting graffiti, and I did this in my backyard growing up. And I was quite a fool. I got in a lot of trouble when I was young doing this kind of stuff. And
Beautiful.
but yeah,
it's really beautiful.
Excellent sense of color there, especially the
Looks like
fuchsia
a
to the
card.
gold green.
thank you.
Yeah, fuchsia and orange is hot.
It's so interesting how Skip, when you we can stand this a little longer, but I just thought of a segue into the image that I would like to share as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, I want to, that's
But
certainly,
Go ahead, Colleen. Go ahead.
I just want to respond to you, Nick. Having done that huge piece, and then you say that the dark side of your creative spirit
Yeah.
took off at the same time.
Yeah.
That there's that, light dark to the creative spirit. There's that light dark to the fool.
Absolutely.
And without that
I
darkness,
think that's fabulous that you let yourself go
Mm-hmm.
with your creative spirit, and that you went all the way, evidently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking front page of the newspaper all the way.
Well, hey, if you're gonna fail beautifully,
For
flat
that-
on the face.
for that particular image, did you do that for that particular image, or are you referring to previous things you graffiti? I'm curious.
What do you with respect to what?
Did you get in trouble for what you just showed us? I'm curious.
Oh, no, that was legal. That was in my own backyard
In your
on a barn. I
I
did
didn't-
several things that were not legal,
Yeah,
and that was what I got into trouble for.
yeah.
Good for
Like
you.
a fool, I thought I could go paint my town. And in a town of 3,000 people in the South, all
Yeah,
fingers were
well-
pointed at the one kid who does graffiti. So
Well, you were a
Those damn
bohemian.
artists.
You're a bohemian. Actually, graffiti, the culture of graffiti comes from that rebellion, because kids were painting in New York. Lots of black and brown kids, and I'm sure white kids eventually too, but it's true. It started drawing on stuff that it would have been illegal to draw on. And
The squad.
that often ends up
Yeah,
happening.
Busquad.
And that
Yeah.
often ends up happening when there are fewer resources. If you had gone to art school or something, and then you put it in a frame and gave it to a teacher, or put it in a museum, everyone would have loved it. But it was inconvenient for some people.
Yeah.
Well, it was birthed out of need too. They didn't have the
But that's
resources to buy canvas, runners, paints, and so they bought Krylon,
So I'm
and
saying,
they invented nozzles. I mean, the creativity with the graffiti artists was actually pretty advanced. They would make whole airbrush setups, whole rigs just off these
Yeah.
plastic nozzles that they carved, and it's a full set of brushes in one can.
So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that in Nick's own individuation, having that darker side became in some way necessary, because now you have a visual aesthetic. It's shown not just in that picture, but in other images that you've shared in class. So that was part of your development of your skill.
Yeah,
As-
and I still use it. I do more. I don't know. I'm not really comfortable with this term, but for lack of a better way to put it, fine art paintings, where I use all of the stuff that I learned doing graffiti and just apply it to what I do now. Like on the painting that I sent all of you guys, I did that whole background with graffiti, but I've done several very, very different things from that. But yeah, I've always, I mean, as is probably evidenced by my interests, always had an interest in being rebellious and being on the fringe of things too. So that really speaks to me. And yeah, I mean, graffiti was the first outlet that provided me with a way to express that. And when I was really young, like I said, I grew up in a super duper small town. The only thing that we had was a train track, and I would see on these freight trains graffiti from other places in the world, and it was like a way for me to connect to other places in the world.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to get to travel when I was young and went to New York City and saw graffiti and was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So yeah, if you guys have any interest, there's a wonderful movie called Style Wars that everyone should check out. It's made by a woman named Martha Cooper, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, I have
That's
a
cool that
question
your train, the museum, just rolled into town for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Samantha, do you have that card that you showed me?
I emailed it to you,
Can
and
you
I
share
have
it? I mean,
oh yeah. Before you give me the power, let me just pull it up on my own.
well, I already gave you the power,
Yeah.
but
The poder, the power.
Samantha
Dame el
has
poder.
another unique one.
Oh gosh, I have so many pictures. I have to find it. Pick photos. I love this. I just got this deck yesterday, and I did a reading for myself, and it came out in my reading.
Hey, Samantha, while you're looking for that, I meant to mention this to you, and for any of you who are also in California, Colleen, and any of the viewers, there's a place, I think it's in Santa Rosa, California. I think it's relatively close to the Bay Area, and it's called it's something like the Rosicrucian Museum.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they apparently have an alchemy exhibit. I know last week you had asked, why the heck do people care about alchemy? Why do people still do alchemy? In the Rosicrucian Museum, I imagine that they have all kinds of Hermetics and Kabbalah and Gnosticism and all of that, exhibits of all that stuff, but they apparently have a real alchemical laboratory as well, which would be interesting to go see.
Yeah. So I have your image here, Samantha.
Okay, yeah. I have it. Go ahead. You share it. I'd rather you share.
I'll just pull it up because
Easier.
I found it.
Isn't that great?
There it is. Yeah.
Looks like Melissa Townsend a little bit.
Can you
Yeah.
can you show the bottom of it, or is it just cut off? It actually says the Fool, but there's no numerology. I just love that.
Right.
Look, it's like, to me, it's saying, I mean, perhaps it's obvious to the group, but the way I read it when I pulled it up today to read for myself was that it was definitely saying I'm the fool. It made me smile because it's like, if you're looking at this deck, you're doing it like by interacting with the deck, you're taking a journey.
Right.
If you're
when
looking
you
at
see
the
her
deck,
fabric,
here's your
her
sun.
altar cloth is falling over, pouring over the front, and then her reflection on the shoulder, you get her repeat or the repeat. So there's the self scrying in the mirror.
Is the mirror, and it makes me think maybe there's a mirror behind us, or maybe there's a mirror in her hand. I don't know.
Well, it's the unseen self-reflection.
She may be looking
into it.
Looking into
looking
her.
at herself. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus it's an infinite number of herself here, and smaller. So
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And that's the micro, the macro, and the molar. I mean, it's all scales.
interesting. That's
What
interesting.
is
And
that?
what is this deck called, Samantha?
This is called,
It's kind of hoodoo on the left with
I
the dolls.
because I sent you a copy. It's called the Ancestral Path Tarot by Julia Cuccia. I'm
Watts.
assuming-
I know her.
And there are four cultures represented. So I know there's Africa, Europe, Asia, and I think indigenous, American indigenous specifically, represented. And it feels, the feel of it is very, like, if you see the other images, I think it's both accurate, but compared to, say, like Mother Peace, I think it's more beautiful, because comparing this and the Rider-Waite, it feels like emotionally intuitive. Like the emotions you get from each one feel to me accurate, to accurately match the Rider-Waite, more kind of a symbolic representation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she layered in so much complexity with just several few tools. You know, a mirror, the cards, the card repeat of her image, and I mean that's a lot there.
And I like that she spreads it out. Like, it's not too heavy on any one culture than the other. It's very spread
Well, and
out.
the cards even splayed across, the Fool being all the cards.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly look at a few other Fool cards, and one of them will be Jordan's card, but let's keep this down to a few minutes, because I don't want to go until 11 o'clock my time. Yeah, so we'll give you 4 additional cards here, and very quickly, Jordan, explain why this person is being impaled.
Well, that's okay. You see what you see, and you see what you see. Intention's overrated. It's more important the way it comes across. So to me, this is the hermaphrodite that is twinkle toes crab walking across the 4-pillared fabric. That is the symbol in Mysterium that is abstracted from 4 pairs of barley stalks, which is the Egyptian hieroglyph for fabric. But the Fool rides this fabric through the whole deck. So in this sense, the toes dipping into, if you look at the little triangles, there's the green, the blue, the red, and the white. So there are all 4 elements there. Each of these pillars is connected to the others in one unified elemental fabric. And if you see the left foot, the gold is rising up into the Fool. You get the moon, I get the earth above, and so that means the Fool is not on the ground. This is a Fool who's within or in a place beyond, and that would then be the unconscious
Or the spirit. Yeah.
or the spirit, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We accept all visions.
I like
here.
your impaled read of it.
I mean, I looked at this thing and I said, "Oh my God, what the heck?"
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Jordan, what is the now I can't think of the word. Why is there a yellow dot in the Gulf of Mexico?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. That's right where the Yucatan meteor landed back in prehistoric times.
Okay.
Nice
A new
eye.
thing to look
Good
up.
eye. Yeah, look at the I don't know if it was truly the planet killer, but there's a whole story about a meteor that, or comet, one or the other, that hit the Earth, and there's this at the bottom of the ocean. There's a big crater where that occurred, and allegedly it was the planet killer that extinguished the dinosaurs. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that just from a historical standpoint, geologically, I believe that a meteor hit at that point in the Yucatan, right in the ocean.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're the first person who finally asked me about that. piece.
Would you connect that into the Fool card, please?
Yeah, because their world ends at every step.
Okay.
And it begins in every step. So to me, there's a whole epoch in prehistory where that place over there, down from the spirit, has life and death across its whole identity.
Yeah, of course, that's true. We
And
have
the gold triangle.
The gold triangle over on the right,
Yes.
that to me is the sun beginning.
Okay. Beautiful.
And it's all brown because it hasn't come into full formation yet. So this is a place of other, capital O, other, was my intent. So it's as if this is right at the dawn of the sun, archetypally.
Okay. Interesting.
Or at the death of the sun, one or the other. I mean, either, now that I think about it, it could be both.
So here's another one. This is the Deviant Moon Tarot, and this fellow is just a young person who doesn't know his limits yet. So he's just thinks he can run on the canals of Venice, and he's getting eaten by the fish, among other things.
He thinks he can play with piranha, apparently.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so that's a vision of the Fool. Then I really like this. This is the Wild Unknown Fool. Okay.
Talk about potential.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Too soft for me. I don't know. I mean, it's really beautiful too, but I don't know. I'm irritated today. So.
Well, look at the step. It's taken a step off the branch. I mean, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cute.
Yeah, I remember these videos of these little chicks of another bird species where they take a step off and they go bouncing down this cliff like 2,000 feet. And if they survive, they're great. But okay, and then here's the Divine Tarot where the Little Mermaid is the Fool in the Divine Tarot. Mm-hmm. And she never takes the step to wish for legs, and so she has to go back to the ocean, and the prince stays on the shore.
You know what happens though in this one?
What happens?
In the original mermaid myth, I'm thinking actually every culture has their own Little Mermaid myth, so some version of that. But I believe the one in my lineage is that it was popularized was she fell in love with someone and then he gave his love to someone else, I believe. He did something.
Yeah. Right.
So she became, I think she killed herself or she was cursed in some way. She put herself out there for him and some curse happened and it resulted in a sea witch, I think, turning her into foam. Yeah.
So that reminds me of the Monaro Deck. So I'll show you the Monaro Deck here.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, we're late enough. You can.
Well,
suitable for.
No, actually, this one's pretty tame.
No,
pretty tame.
I know. That's why it's funny.
Okay, this is pretty tame, but at the same time, here's the Little Mermaid, and who's she talking to?
She's not a mermaid. The story is, I'm making this up, but the story is, I do declare, the Fool is this boy who basically, because it's an erotic tarot deck, I think there's some erotic references, but
yes,
basically his nose his nose is erect because of this beautiful woman. But in terms of how do we relate this to individuation, because I do believe the Monaro Deck has rich symbolism. It's not just to titillate, although it's
Right.
is that it's becoming a man, you know, he's becoming a man by interacting with this, what would be the blue fairy in the original, the fairy that helps him become a real boy.
Well, and to
Right.
keep the theme with a menorah,
about
I mean, she might be saying, lie, tell the truth, lie, tell the truth, lie, tell the truth. And
Yeah,
The
she
nose-
might be, but also,
the nose grows
Whatever
in
you
the-
see, Jordan, it's whatever you see.
No, this is a Pinocchio joke. It's an old erotic Pinocchio joke.
I get it.
Excuse me, because I'm chewing food, but I think also it might have something to do with like the dawn of malehood and puberty.
right-ho.
Yeah,
And
where he becomes a real boy.
a man made the deck, so I think he's putting a little of his own. This is how I imagine he's thinking. Like,
Well, this is the divine feminine coming to not emasculate, but individuate.
Yeah, wake
the
up.
fake little boy to wake up and become a real little boy.
it's
Yeah,
also it's also with respect. You know what I mean? Like she's there's only one card in this deck that I think is questionable, that you know that I just don't like to look at, and I don't know what his intention was when he designed it, but I think that this is perfectly feminist. I mean, she's not in any there's the hierarchy. She's not below him literally, but she's also clothed, so it's more her. She also has maternal power, and I think that we're often attracted to people as partners who tend to fulfill, either mirror the problems of the parent who is the gender that we later become attracted to, but also fulfill some of what wasn't there. So to me, that's the Freudian concept, but I think it's very Freudian.
Well, also just biologically, I mean, young women mature at a faster rate than young men do. So, I mean, it appears to me like this woman here is not necessarily a woman that is much older. I mean, she's clothed, but you know, maybe she's 14 and he's 13. I don't know.
And that goes right with that Uranus, because there's the astrological symbol of Uranus at the bottom.
We're also assuming that I was assuming that because the man made the deck, from what I understand, that the who represents as male is the sexual subject, and she would be more the object, but actually she could be the subject as well. She's playing with a toy that is phallic. So maybe she's the individuating.
Yeah,
well, and that could be a girl Pinocchio, because it looks like a dress with lace on the collar and a head covering.
I'm blushing now, you guys. I think that I think this is a powerful deck.
Well, this actually happened to me, which was an older woman.
Is that how you envision?
No, well, I mean, it happened to me when I was, let's see, how old was I? I must have been, I guess I was 10, and there was a older girl who was 12, so Nick's got it right. And we were at a swimming event, and she was sitting next to me, and she turned to me and kissed my ear. Oh my God.
Ooh.
Oh no. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Okay. Here's the spirit song, Tarot.
Talk about a coat of pretty colors.
Which is a gazelle. Huh?
I think maybe I'm growing up, because I just, at least today, like I feel maybe I'm more of an adult than yesterday or something, because I was trying to figure out an inner child. I have so many different decks that I wanted to do spreads that are particular to the deck. So I thought this would make a great inner child, something to do with, it's very childlike. The entire deck is very, very soft, not in a bad way, but it would probably be for someone, good to read for someone who really needed a really light or yin touch.
Yeah, or yeah, for a kid.
For,
maybe.
yeah.
And-
Yeah,
and-
because this deck is strong enough to be gentle.
Yeah, and it has it has these descriptions of what the card means, basically.
Soft for a man, pH balanced for a woman.
Say it again.
That's a bad commercial.
I said, thank you, George. I said soft for a man, pH balanced for a woman. They were selling a deodorant that had the word
Secret.
soft. Yes, secret.
Yeah, soft and dry or something
Yeah,
like that. It's
soft
like,
and
yeah,
dry. Yeah.
strong enough for a man, but made for a woman. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
Strong enough for a
okay.
man, pH
yeah, it's a
Okay.
horrible commercial, but it's funny.
That's how they sell genders, you know.
Yeah.
All right, here's the Line Strider deck. And she intentionally didn't put a face on it. So I think I have to read her explanation of why she didn't do that. The Fool is a card of potential, new beginnings, and innocence. I was moved to draw him with an unfinished face and body because the card speaks of someone at the start of a formative journey or experience. Who he will become is still a mystery. This card indicates the adventure and new opportunities await. The Fool is carefree, unburdened by fear or anxiety, even though he is taking a literal leap of faith with one foot on the edge of a cliff. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but that's why she didn't put a face on it.
I think maybe she got tired and then no, I don't mean to be rude.
Yeah, she was trying to hurry.
How dare you?
Well, I want to support a woman and all that, but I'm just like, I don't know. It's hard to tell. That's why you have to, it depends whether or not you trust the artist, you know, but the truth is, even if you do make a mistake, it's necessary to incorporate it into what you made.
Well, and the Line Strider is all about minimalism. So to me, that was the perfect last coup d'etat of that graphic story that she's telling.
Yeah.
I think it's a little girl, because that could have been me. I was such a tomboy. And it also looks like a Heyoka to me, you know.
What, this one?
The other one. Yeah, from what I understand Heyoka to mean. I haven't really seen something I knew to be the original indigenous Heyoka, because that was sort of appropriated. But this
Right. Okay, this is the SARS Tarot, and I'm sorry I don't remember why it's
Russian.
Well, it's Russian. I don't know why it's so sad.
Because it's Russian.
Yeah, all they have to do is kick rocks.
In the cold.
Siberia was very cold, and there was warring and all that.
Okay, I should go to the Splendor Solis here. So let me get that up here for you.
Thank you, Jordan.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think someone was waving goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jordy.
I'd like to be in.
Yeah,
Bye,
Jordy,
Jordy.
thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here so late. My goodness.
Skip maybe.
Well, that's hard.
Wait a minute.
Hardcore.
Let's give Jordy a chance to talk. Are you trying to say something, Jordy? Go ahead.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you to all of you. Special mentions of the, say, content providers and organizers, masterminds, and generally the back office. If you stop by Madrid, say hello. Not, but I am here. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last sentence.
If you stop by Madrid, Spain, say hello.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you, and
appreciate
good luck
that.
to be pretending to be in the office at 8:30 in 4.5 hours.
Me gusta escribirte.
Yeah, I am in Facebook. I am a friend of Donald. I mean, you can find me easily there.
Yeah.
Okay, gracias.
Don't worry for me. I had about 250 days in the emergency room of a hospital. I now have to get a sleep to wake up, to pretend to be wake up and not really, and all variations of that.
Okay.
I need to go
Sleep well.
also.
Yeah.
Bye, Ghost.
I need to go.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Take
Bye,
care,
Gilda.
Gilda. Thank you for
You're-
coming.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you for being
It's
here.
lovely.
Thank
Come
you
back.
for your contributions, Gilda. I
Good night,
appreciate
good
it
night.
very much.
Thank you. It's
Right.
lovely.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
And okay, Splendor Solis, we're going to work on here. If I can find it. It was it's 4:15 in the morning where Jordy is.
Yeah, he's a doctor, and as he said in the beginning, it's like I have to go pretend to be in the office at 8:30 in the morning.
He's a doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
That was,
in Spain.
yeah, España.
he's an emergency room doctor, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay, so they work at all hours.
yeah.
Okay, so the alchemy of the fool here, and this is the Splendor Solis deck. I am the accomplishment, inner alchemy of the fool, spirit of ether. I come that you may make a new beginning, knowing all that's needed for your own accomplishment is ready to unfold. Follow the vision and path of the fool, and all shall be well. I am artisan of the fiery, scintillating intelligence, ever becoming truth, bringing light to all travelers. Holding me in the mind's eye, the fool steps out with trust to weave the first way. So will you, dear alchemist. Let sparks of interest light the fire. Enter my golden garden of musical harmonies, where Hopo teaches vision. Talk with my philosophers under a wide sky. Cross my alchemical waters, then climb the steps unto radiant heraldic accomplishment. You will have begun weaving the four worlds and glimpse the animating sun behind the sun, quintessence and inspiration for the journey. My illumination is given to you as a traveler's guide and pattern, for my alchemy links the point of each world with the zodiac circle of experience. Contemplate my elemental symbols and transformation. Enter my chapel, for it is a temple of the heart. Your true self, the beloved friend, is always already here within, welcoming you to meetings in the heart's radiant awareness. So, any comments on this?
Yeah, I just want to point out that, as I said, with the Fool and the Rider-Waite and the Bota deck, that the satchel contains the four elemental weapons: the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle. Arma artis means weapons of the art.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a coat of arms here, and it also represents these four elemental weapons. And I mean, that's interesting because, as I've said, I guess it depends on kind of what angle you approach the tarot from. But if you approach it from kind of the Hermetic perspective, all of these weapons, people would use these in rituals. So any of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn's rituals or any of the subsequent rituals, they're all done using these weapons. Like every magician would have their own wand, their own sword, their own chalice, their own version of a pentacle that they would always use in their rituals. So they truly are elemental weapons in the sense that they describe it.
Yeah.
I'm really drawn on this one to the primate on the left feeding the ibis a fish, and the primate on the right at the bottom playing guitar.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a pretty powerful little scene across that bottom frieze.
Right. Yep. That is.
Yeah,
Or
I think it.
What if they're really there, and then that thing in the middle is a painting that they made with those primates in the background like that, and they're contemplating us.
Well, then actually that's interesting, because then you're going to go into the four arts. You have the music, and then you have the fishing would be the philosophy, and then the art above. That's only three. And I kind of hit a brick wall on that one, so I'll stop.
Did I talk over you, Skip, also?
No, that's all right.
It happened impulsively, so I didn't know.
No, I just wanted to show another version of the Fool.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's one other thing that I want to say, and I was torn over whether or not I should include this in my series of slides, but I'll try to just unpack the idea and see if it goes anywhere. Let's see where to begin. So the monkey at the bottom is playing a musical instrument. Also in the Marseille deck, I believe the traveler carries a violin in one hand.
I think so. Yeah.
So there's
that or
this
ukulele, one or the other.
There's this idea of music, and when Skip posed the question at the beginning, where is the fool? I was trying to make an allusion to kind of the traveling hippie type of person. If you live in a city, I'm sure that you've seen them before. They very characteristically almost always have dreadlocks, clothes with lots of patches on them.
The gypsies.
A pit bull, right? The kind of neo gypsies or something like that. And I lived in Asheville, North Carolina for a while, and I lived next to a freight train yard, and I lived with a bunch of hippies, and we had traveling people come stay with us all the time. I mean, people that would jump off trains, freight trains, not passenger trains, and come stay with us. And there's this really vibrant and wild counterculture movement called the Rainbow Family. And it's essentially this kind of gypsy group of people that travel around almost permanently. And during the summer, they have these things called rainbow gatherings. They're usually in national or state forests, somewhere with public land. They'll come and essentially set up a sustainable community in one of these public lands for a period during a summer, make kitchens with earthen ovens, build stages, do all kinds of stuff, and just have this massive celebration. And that when I was thinking about the Fool card, these were the type of people that came to mind, because they live this transient lifestyle. They're always traveling. They're on the fringe of society. They don't really subscribe to the rules of society. And they're like always traveling, making their music, busking for money, and doing that kind of thing. It's fascinating. It's not a lifestyle I would recommend to anybody necessarily, but it's one that I've kind of done a dance with myself, and living with people like that. And they all abide by that Keezy ethos that I was saying, where they're essentially like, never trust a prankster. Like, they're sly freaking people. Not all of them. I've known several of the type of person that I'm describing that are, genuine people, good people. But a lot of them are kind of like, if you think I'm this nice hippie person, that's your disadvantage, because I will steal from you the moment that you give me the chance. And I'm a pretty slippery character.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's a good book called Vagabonding.
In California, there's a common phenomenon. There's a lot of white kids with dreadlocks, which people kind of. I'm just thinking of the stereotype. It's not just white street kids and street punks, but sometimes there'll be people who really take on the punk ethos, and they're dealing with an addiction as well, or maybe they're, but I know someone who gave money to a street punk kid, and or the kid asked for money and they're like, no, and then their cell phone rang. So it's sort of like, you clearly have enough money for a cell phone, like you don't have to be here. So that's sort of the full nature of it, though, where it's like I'm rebelling, or I just have a marijuana addiction that I have to feed, or whatever. But it's a duality. I've also dabbled in what you're talking about.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Samantha, because in Boulder, Colorado,
I never had locks.
In Boulder, Colorado, to go to the walking mall, you park a block or three away, and I remember this one quote unquote homeless guy, and I one day I made a comment. It's like, wow, those jeans almost look like expensive acid washed $500, but they were all dirty. And then the next day, I'm parking to go to lunch with a friend, and this huge 7 Series Mama of a Beamer, blacked out, pulls up, and he gets out of the car and walks down to the mall with his coffee cup and his pity cardboard mat, and sits down. Come to find out, he makes 200 grand a year begging.
Bro,
Yeah.
listen, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, and
Like,
and I mean, it's like, wow. Do you claim your tips? I asked him.
yeah,
Yeah.
Basquiat was well, Basquiat played with that. The artist Basquiat, we're on the same page.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So he came from an upper middle class family. His father, I believe, was a lawyer. I'm not sure what his mother did, but he was sort of a punk, and like kind of like what Nicholas did. He painted on anything he wanted to, and in fact, like at least in the movie about his life, he could be kind of a jerk about it because his girlfriend was an artist, or he painted on some of her clothes or something, and she's like, "What the f are you doing?" And then she just was attracted to him, so she was okay with it. I guess she like laughs about it, but he was kind of a jerk, you could say. I don't know. He's an interesting character, but the point is, people started calling him a graffiti artist, and he played to that. You know, he kind of dressed like he was a bum, or he wasn't from the street at all. He actually wasn't even doing graffiti, but he did write on things, and because he was Black, like a lot of the people who did graffiti, they put him in that category, but he also consciously played with it because it was a niche for him. So that's being an artist, I guess.
Okay, so while you've all been talking about that, I've left this image up on the screen because this is Melissa Townsend, one of her decks. And we've all been panhandlers, okay, because we're all born the fool. And so I just wanted to emphasize her image here and the fact that we're all a fool when we're born. And just to riff on what you were talking about there, in Washington, there was a study done, I think it was done at George Washington University, and they found out that if you panhandle at DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C., you can make about $18 an hour.
But of course, I'm sure that people who were involved in the experiment, they might have had food on their belly already, and like they didn't have to travel long distance, you know. Actually,
so so here's Melissa's other fool card, where there's no one, there's just a crown, and I just thought that was interesting.
But it is the jester's hat.
Yeah,
right.
it is,
Because
yeah.
it has those bells on it and the separate sections.
Right. Okay, so then this is the fool in Robert Wang's The Union Tarot, for what it's worth. And this is the fool in the Sasa Burrito deck. I think I should read her description. It's brief. Okay, the fool, the gesture, the fool is at the beginning of our journey. While we'll commonly see being acting a fool as a bad thing, in this sense, that is not so. The fool has beginner's mind, has no strings attached, and is free to fear and is free of fear and preconception. He is the wanderer, childlike and innocent, able to take risks, able to be spontaneous. The fool can represent a fresh start, a new path or beginning, a great potential. He is the spirit in search of experience, open and unaware of his own supposed limitations. Okay, so that's short, sweet.
Well, and his clothing, he's just clothed by his beard.
Yeah.
that might very well be my favorite one.
Okay.
Hey, look at him. He's dancing and he's doing a jig.
Yeah, he's having good time.
That's
and
the
then
type of senior I'd like to grow into.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah.
And then this is, of course, the Marseille deck. So that was that one. And
also, just there's something that you read in the description of that card that I want to say something about. I guess the best way to put this is that I was trying to say this in a way that wasn't as direct in the slides that I presented, that I know that I personally, there have been times in my life where out of foolishness, I said something that, you know, I guess I was speaking from a place of a lack of restraint or just a general ignorance or naivete, and said something that like really, really struck a nerve with somebody, and not necessarily in like an offensive or bad way, but just like through my not trying to abide by the niceties and politeness of normal parlance, I said something that just cut through all of that. And I think that's a little bit of the kind of advantage of the Fool too, as I was saying in my slides, like he doesn't have any commitment to a social creed or a long list of virtues or any of these things. Like, I think those people that just kind of very naively storm through the door and say what everybody else is afraid to say is a major element of this card too.
I think that's a really important to reinforce. I'm glad you brought that back up again to kind of close the circle from the beginning, because I think that's one of the primary tenets that the Fool imbues.
Yeah.
Like the Emperor's New Clothes, who revealed that the Emperor was naked was a child.
Well, that's like the hermit who came out of the cave and now he's just dancing.
Yeah.
I love that. Great story.
4 more cards here quickly. These are, okay, so this is the Golden Dawn deck. I'm not going to dwell on these because these are some of the leading decks, and people can find them for themselves and should. So the Golden Dawn is here on the upper left. The upper right is the Thoth deck, and that is absolutely the most complicated Fool. Eva Ryder likes this deck extremely well, but I find it too complicated myself.
Well, you know what's interesting about you saying that? It's one of the primary ones I read with, and what I find is it's kind of collagey rather than complex. There's so many symbols stacked in here that, like you said, there's a sensory overload piece that occurs.
What's this all about? I mean,
You're into that. I can see the influence on your own deck, and you got to divine with what you like, right?
Yeah.
Well, right, because my deck is more close to a Marseille than it is any of these, and it is similar in that simple way. But yeah, there's so much going on. I mean, you could tell story about the lion biting the leg, the butterfly hidden. What's going on there with the flowers that are falling out of his man womb? I mean,
the images of all the planets here, the astrological images.
They look like runes. They look like they were carved on runes, or rune.
Yeah, there are runes there.
Yeah, the unlike most tarot decks, Crowley actually associated the runes as well as the Hebrew letters with all these cards. But the most interesting thing about this card to me is that this is actually the god Pan. And you know, I think as it is with everybody who comes to know about the gods of old, whatever pantheon it is that you're learning about, you know, everybody kind of has a patron deity or one that they really feel a kinship to. I know Skip has said the same about Hermes, and you know, I think everybody relates to one in particular, and I think Crowley really found in all of his wild sexual misadventures and his just general wildness a real kinship to Pan.
Right, the goat.
And that's why he says very explicitly that this is the god Pan.
Yeah.
And that the goat will be that one that you said that will walk into the room and just bam, headbutt with the statement.
Okay, so here's the mythic tarot, and here's the eagle, which when you mentioned the eagle earlier, I did not see it in the purse. Maybe it's just I couldn't see the original painting well enough to know, but anyway.
I would like to look up the meaning. I just got an oracle deck that's indigenous It's a little more pan-indigenous, but I'd like to look up the meaning of eagle and share it if I may.
Okay, go ahead. But meanwhile, let me just
I'm not-
finish here with this. This is the 5th tarot. This
Samantha, are you using Animal Speak by Ted Andrews?
Animal Oracle, I think is what it's called. I have to find it in my mass on my desk. So go ahead, Skip.
Okay.
I definitely see what you mean about the 5th tarot being a little too airy fairy, as you like to put it. That looks, I don't know, kiddish to me.
Well, some of the images I really like, but this is not one of them.
I agree. Several I've seen I really enjoyed. Specifically, the Tower card has stuck with me. I really, really enjoyed that one. But this one just looks like a childish leprechaun situation or something.
I didn't like Barney as a child. I was a snob even then. I just feel like I was never that child.
So Samantha,
it's not true.
Your eagles. Ted Andrews' Animal Speak is a really, really wonderful book on animal totems. But eagles, the keynote of eagles is illumination of spirit, healing, and creation. The cycle of power is all seasons and during daylight. And what's interesting is that eagle is one of the greatest and most admired birds of prey. It has served as an inspiration to many societies. Their ability to soar and hunt amazes and thrills those who are witness. Eagles, in fact, are so good at hunting, they spend very little time hunting. The fact that they are good at feeding themselves from the land and still soar to great heights in the sky reflects much about the hidden significance of the eagle who comes as a totem. They will teach a balance of being of the earth, but not in it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Skip.
I just wanted to mention that there's a terrific documentary about a contest in Mongolia involving golden eagles, where they train these golden eagles to hunt. And it's about a girl who gets an eagle. And at age 15, she beats all these 70-year-old guys who've been
she's
training.
Amazing.
Yeah. And we'll have to find the name of that so we can tell you about it, because it's really worth watching. It's only an hour long, but it's really incredible to see what
I'll
she
have
does.
to look for the name. I saw that this summer, and it's inspiring.
Yeah.
You said it's a documentary?
Yeah, it's
Mongolian
a documentary.
Girl.
So may I read this now?
Yes. This will be the final thing, because Skip's running out of steam here. So
what I like about it is that I wanted to find, when I selected this, I wanted to really find, I'm trying to assemble a collection that is reflective of at least those 4 main continents, because I'd like to be able to read for everyone. And I think there's something that happens when someone sees images that from their own ancestral line that I imagine it's powerful. So my best friend's indigenous, but I tried to go through her first. I was like, because it's more pan-indigenous, but the names of the people who created it have names that that they have some of the language in here, and one of them thanks their grandmother who had what I believe is an indigenous name, or a name from an indigenous dialect. So it feels authentic, and I read it and I like the description. So
indigenous to where?
The United States.
Oh.
Native American. My friend told me that Kelly is her name, that actually it's preferred for, like, indigenous people say indigenous. They no longer say, for the most part, Native American. That's like more of a European. Anyway, there's reasons for that politically. Anyway, eagle, okay? So there's a poem. This is what it looks like. This is medicine cards, the discovery of power through the ways of animals. The names of the people are Jamie Sams and David Carson, illustrations by Angela Wernicke. And okay. Eagle, fly high. Also, they could still be indigenous, my friends.
So what is the cover name of what you're looking at?
Medicine cards.
Medicine cards. Okay, go ahead.
And my friend's last name is French, so they may be indigenous as well. indigenous, American indigenous. Okay, okay, so this had the number 1, eagle spirit. So it has a little poem here. Eagle, fly high, touch great spirit, share your medicine, touch me, honor me, so that I may know you too. And it says, eagle medicine is the power of the great spirit, the connection to the divine. It is the ability to live in the realm of spirit and yet remain connected and balanced within the realm of earth. Eagle soars and is quick to observe expansiveness within the overall pattern of life. From the heights of the clouds, eagle is close to the heavens where the great spirit dwells. The feathers of eagle are considered to be the most sacred of healing tools. They have been used for centuries by shamans to cleanse the auras of patients coming to them for healing. Within the belief system of, they said Native American, I'm going to say indigenous tribe, eagle represents a state of grace achieved through hard work, understanding, and a completion of the tests of initiation. Interesting that the eagle's 1, and I don't know, that's not tarot, it's oracle, but anyway, eagle represents a initiation, which result in the taking of one's personal power. This is very much like a Fool card. It is only through the trial of experiencing the lows in life as well as the highs, and through the trial of trusting one's connection to the Great Spirit, that the right to use the essence of eagle medicine is earned. And if you have pulled this symbol, eagle is reminding you to take heart and gather your courage, for the universe is presenting you with an opportunity to soar above the mundane levels of your life. The power of recognizing this opportunity may come in the form of a spiritual test. In being astute, you may recognize the places within your soul, personality, emotions, or psyche that need bolstering or refinement. By looking at the overall tapestry, eagle teaches you to broaden your sense of self beyond the horizon of what is presently visible. In learning to fiercely attack your personal fear of the unknown, the wings of your soul will be supported by the ever-present breezes, which are the breath of the Great Spirit. Feed your body, but most importantly, feed your soul. Within the realm of Mother Earth and Father Sky, the dance that leads to flight involves the conquering of fear and the willingness to join in the adventure that you are co-creating with the divine. If eagle has majestically soared into your cards, as it has in all of ours today, you are being put on notice to reconnect with the element of air. Air is of the mental plane, and in this instance, it is of the higher mind. Wisdom comes in many strange and curious forms and is always related to the creative force of the Great Spirit. If you have been walking in the shadows of former realities, okay, eagle brings illumination. Eagle teaches you to look higher and to touch grandfather sun with your heart, to love the shadow as well as the light. Skip, it's almost done, I promise. See the beauty in both, and you will take flight like the eagle. Eagle medicine is the gift we give ourselves to remind us of the freedom of the skies. Eagle asks you to give yourself permission to legalize freedom and to follow the joy of your heart desires. There's a contrary meaning, I won't read it. I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so there's a gentleman named Justin Case on the YouTube channel who was communicating with Patricia Flores while we've been chatting, boring.
And I have to say, Justin, I think you have the perfect contingency name, just in case.
Right, probably so. And because it's Case, it may not be the best name in town, but nonetheless, for Tarot, but nonetheless, he says that he participates in a streaming on YouTube, which is called Peanut Butter Tarot. So if you can't get enough tarot, you can go to Peanut Butter Tarot, and he says he moderates 12 hours without a break, streaming from Florida, and that their record is to go 20 hours, 51 minutes, and 2 seconds.
That is addictive. Peanut butter is addictive. So I feel like they're trying to.
And that would be serious. I mean, what we're trying to do is show people a roadmap for life, but it's metaphorical in the sense that you have to go out and get a life, right? And if you're going to spend 20 hours nonstop on a YouTube live stream, that may be a little extreme.
Well, if I did that, I'd have half my work week. I don't have to work 20 more hours.
Yeah. I mean,
I was in a
but
theater.
anyway, Justin has made many good comments
Yeah.
over the weeks, and so I do appreciate his participation. And I'm
Trying
only
to break a record.
I'm joking around here, but
But he's
anyway.
also trying to make break a record of some kind. So perhaps he needs that to individuate.
Yeah.
You know?
So
That's
if
the
you
lessons of
can't
us
get enough Thoreau, go to Peanut Butter Thoreau. And
Well, Justin, actually, I had that on my list. It's slowly sifting up. I heard about it over the summer, and someone mentioned it, and I thought it was kind of a joke, and then I heard about it again. So at some point, I'm gonna stop through your shop, basically.
But is he pulling cards this whole time? He's just hosting for other people to pull cards?
I'm going to start keeping a tally of how many times you guys say individuate, and at 10, I'm cutting it off.
Okay, well we are
up.
So then we'll go individuate,
Yeah,
and that's the Bohemian way. You got to be an indie.
At 10:45, I'm going to cut it off.
He's gonna call it.
Denise, I hope this has been a interesting evening for you. And
Very interesting. Thank you.
And I have to say, I love the counterpoint of screen name being the silent, the what's in the bag, we don't know. So that's a perfect ad.
I know, and I'm not telling.
I
but
know,
I'm glad you're here.
Good for you for promoting yourself, just in case.
Right, and
whoever that is.
So, Annabelle, all we can do is say best of luck in terms of stepping off. You're moving tomorrow, are you?
No, I'm moving. They come to finish packing next Sunday, and it's Monday, our next meeting, when it will be completed.
It will be completed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you staying in New York City, or are you moving somewhere else?
I'm going to Jersey City.
Okay.
So I'm crossing the river. I'm crossing to a new state. There are a lot of pieces to put in place.
Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
Going to Jersey.
Jersey's
cool.
freaking beautiful. Yeah, I've driven through. Well, I mean, there's the part of Jersey that looks like Gotham, but then there's also like three-quarters of it is like beautiful, pristine farmland.
It's funny that I got lost.
I'm moving to farmland. I'm moving to where, when coronavirus is a little lifted, I can still go on public transportation to an office in New York occasionally. So I'm just steps away from a PATH station, if you know PATH.
Yes.
But I'm definitely upgrading in many, many ways, which
Good
is
for you.
a very nice thing to do. And there's very vast, wildness, because there's the Meadowlands. There's this wild area with lots of birds and migration of birds and open spaces nearby. So it's, steps from connecting to the city and steps from just long paths where I've been walking with dogs recently. So
it's funny, when I first moved
dog on this card, because I lost my dog November 16th. He died, and so that's been part of this tarot journey.
Yeah, you've tracked it right along.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been great.
Okay,
So
well,
I'm looking forward to
we wish you
minor arcana. So I won't have major arcana. Blindness, death of the dog, moving. It's been major.
Well, we should ask you then what suit we should start with. What do you want next in your life? Since we have all this power.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you, in this Marseille deck, this is the card that is just so powerful to me.
Ace of
One.
Wands.
Yeah, Ace
that
of Wands.
wand.
Yeah.
Really,
Thank you, Annabelle.
really a special card.
Nick's been Nick
Has Nick
and
been voting on that platform, the wand platform?
right.
Nick, with what
Wands.
you just said, Nick will remove 5 individuates from your record, so you have a credit now.
Never used really
About this, we take a shot every time we say individuate, Nick. Just
No,
you.
no.
Take
Okay.
a shot. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I don't think I'd make it past 30 minutes.
Skip to time.
Yeah, no, we want you to live, so,
So
we can't do
Skip's
that.
telling us to stop the long
Oh
goodbye.
yeah,
He's
we're
like,
past
done.
45.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you for your patience, Skip.
Yeah.
we wish you the very best.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And have a good move. And
I'm
we
looking forward
hope
to
to
next
see you
Monday.
next week. Now, next Monday, we will be having a generic discussion about the minor arcana,
Good.
which will cover all the suits. And,
Here to learn. Yes.
but in a very generic way. Then we're going to go back and go deeply into them. So,
Wonderful.
Mhm.
and Samantha, what are you acting out? You're
I forgot that I was being recorded, actually. I was just
She's striking a pose. She's
thought you were
voguing.
landing an airplane or
I was
something.
just feeling
Yeah,
good.
she's.
You know what? I feel good. I got what feels like a good idea.
Which is?
Well, I don't know if I can commit to it, but it's just I was thinking about what I might reference in class. I know I'm not. No one's leading, right? No one's leading next week, officially.
Yes, nobody's leading officially next
Okay,
week.
because I was thinking about that question about order. What order should they go in? And I've heard different things in the insets in terms of what is the process through which we actually create. And I was thinking about religious science. You asked, see, that's why I just danced it out, because I know we only have so much time. I was thinking about religious science, and they think it starts with the mind, and then I read something else that says it actually starts with your actions. Like basically it's inverted.
Well, and we talked about this before you got on this tonight, because, and I think we settled into, and I agree with Nick that we'll start with a simple way of it starts with wands, with energy, because frankly, there's 16 ways you can run them.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
no,
it's
I
just
know,
a matter of any creation story. So however you want to run it. So I agree with Nick that we'll start with wands when we get there to play with, even Skip's E equals MC squared. I mean, we start with the energy and we move from there.
The truth is, yes, we start with energy, but we have to freaking take action at the end of the day. And so that's the thing about tarot. It's all information, but we still have to freaking do things. So that's why I'm doing wands, because I wanna like make myself do more things.
Well, that was my old joke in my company, is I'd walk in the door. Oh, hey guys, there's good news and bad news. What's the good news? I signed up some work. What's the bad news? You got to draw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
all right.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone. Good luck, Annabelle.
Yeah, good luck, Annabelle.
Thank you.
Good
Good
energy
night
to
to
your move.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Nick.
Bye. I'll
Thanks,
just
everyone.
stay here. You could just live stream me to the YouTube audience.
What do you want now? What?
No, I don't really want. I was just saying I'll just keep me on here. I'll be by myself. I'll just stay here all night, just talking to myself, and the public will eat it up.
That's probably true. Okay, Samantha.